What's that place you've always wanted to try? Well, you're there, sharing plates with
just one bite.
Or on second thought, maybe not sharing. It's that good. When you're with Amex, it's not if it's going to happen, but when. American Express. Don't live life without it.
Hey, it's me, your Uncle Cooper. Sorry to interrupt your music. I do love music, especially when it's set at a reasonable volume. You know, music is really only as good as your speakers. The same is true for minivans. A minivan is only as good as the tires it sits on. And the button on the screen there, it agrees with me. If you click on it, it'll bring you to all the Cooper minivan tires that'll make your minivan a really good minivan. Go with the Coopers! Cooper!
Hello and welcome to the Over and Back Classic NBA podcast brought to you by StatHead. I am Jason and with me as usual is Rich. Hello, Rich.
Hey, what's going on?
A whole lot, man. We got a fun one here, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've definitely never said, hey, we've got a
this show might suck, but let's give it a try anyway.
But this one is especially fun to me. So we went and we are looking at each franchise and the Hall of Famers who have played for those franchises.
Yes.
So, obviously, you're talking about the Knicks. You think of Patrick Ewing, you think of Willis Reed, you think of, Bill Bradley. But do you think of Paul Westfall? Do you think of Tracy McGrady? Do you think of Jason Kidd? So, we're going to be talking about all of them, but I think the focus will be like, oh yeah, that's right. That guy played there. That's right. Patrick Ewing on the Magic, Hakeem Olajuwon on the Raptors mean. That's the kind of thing that we're going to dig into here. Also going to look at the probable Hall of Famers for each franchise. So just going to be some interesting discussions, some tangents I'm going to imagine we're going to get into, but that's always makes it fun.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, obviously we're doing it this week because the Hall of Fame induction ceremony going on September 9th, I want to say, Friday, September 9th. I believe in a few new guys going in, obviously. Manu Ginobili, Tim Hardaway. I'm trying to think of George Karl. Furious George getting in
Furious George
Hall of
finally
Fame.
in. Yeah.
I think I'm missing a name, but those I think are the highlights as far as NBA players going in. I apologize if I'm missing anybody, but we typically don't. Here's the thing: we don't really care that much about the Basketball Hall of Fame, so it's hard to really get like super excited about like, hey, let's break down Tim Hardaway's career, but we like having fun with the idea of the Hall of Fame, and that's where I think this episode comes in, and it's a way to look at a Hall of Fame with a little bit of a different. A different touch, just a different way to look at it as opposed to, just kind of breaking down Tim Hardaway's career, or just breaking down Manu Ginobili's career, or talking once again about old George Karl, which would not be a bad episode, actually, to do the George Karl episode. Del Harris was the other name that I was forgetting about as well. Lou Hudson as well going in.
Yeah, Larry Costello also made it in.
Oh, right. Yeah. God, it's like I forget that, like, those guys, it's like, oh, well, now you put them in? Like,
right, absolutely, yeah. So, referee Hugh Evans is in, Bob Huggins, the college coach, Lindsey Whalen, Swin Cash, Marianne Stanley, WNBA, and coach. So, and so that's a fun one. Obviously,
he's not alive anymore, right? If I remember correctly. No, he died in 2014.
Yeah,
okay.
he passed away. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, there's a lot of. It's obviously not the most star-studded, class. Obviously, the year with Kobe and KG and Duncan, it doesn't compare to that in terms of star power. But yeah, in terms of guys who are definitely deserving, haven't had a chance, but probably been every guys that we've talked about is like, oh yeah, this guy probably deserves to be in. What's up with that?
Yeah,
so
sure.
Finally getting some of those guys in, so that's fine. So yeah. This one, I think we're going to focus on the longest standing franchises in NBA history, the ones with the deeper history. I'm going to be doing another show or two on the more recent franchises because, a lot of stuff to dig into here. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I can't wait. Let's do it.
Yeah. All right, well, we will start with the Knicks, and I'm going to list all the players. I'm going to list them all in order of least to most contributions to the team. So we got Tracy McGrady. Did you remember that Tracy McGrady played for?
Of course, I remember
Knicks?
the Tracy McGrady Knicks. Not because it's not just because I'm looking at a picture of Tracy McGrady Knicks. Because on Google, I decided to look up Tracy McGrady Knicks just to remind myself that yes, Tracy McGrady did play for the Knicks. So of course, I remember Tracy McGrady's 24 games on the 2010 Knicks. Who doesn't remember those? So I don't know. You're saying least contributions to highest, and I don't know. I tend to disagree. Is that Is that subjective or objective? What's the criteria? Because I feel like Tracy McGrady's no, he didn't do anything for the Knicks. It was 24 games and he was bad. So
right. Yeah, and I remember there was one because this was after he was traded from the Rockets. This was like finally getting out of the deal. The Rockets were trying to clear space. I guess the Knicks were trying to clear space too. Everybody was trying to clear cap space. This was the trying to get LeBron.
Yes.
Situation.
Oh yeah. This was the every team is like maybe
Yeah.
Like,
so we'll get Amari instead. It'll be fine. But yeah, so McGrady, like I remember there was like one really exciting game he played. It was kind of like the old McGrady in Madison Square Garden. People were chanting his name, and that was a fun memory. But yeah, it did not go anywhere. He ended up kind of being a journeyman, bouncing around for the rest of his career. Played
another,
not
the last time we were going to mention Tracy McGrady on the show because my man he played for a lot of teams at the end of his career.
He did play for a lot of teams. Yeah, absolutely. We got Slater Martin, who was between his stints with the Lakers dynasty and then later with the 58 Hawks. He played a few games with the Knicks in between there. Dikembe Mutombo, kind of forgot he was a Knick for in 2004, but for 65 games he was a Knick.
Yeah, and then I remember him because he came to the Bulls in the Eddie Curry trade, and then the Bulls just didn't use him. I was like, I don't think Dikembe wanted to play for I forget what it was, but and then he ended up going to Houston, I want to say, after that. So
I don't think it was the Eddie Curry trade. It was a different trade because Eddie Curry was later. Because I think, we'll figure that one out. Anyway, we got Paul Westfall, we got Jason Kidd mentioned before. Mm-hmm. We got Al McGuire, but more he's in for as a college coach, not really his first playing career. Maurice Cheeks, early 90s Knicks. I think, right beginning of the Pat Riley run. I think he was there. Tom Gola, of course, more famous for his years with the Warriors, was part of that 56 championship team in Philly, but played toward the end of his career with the Knicks. Spencer Haywood, we've talked about the Spencer Haywood years for the Knicks, not the most glorious years of his career. Nat Sweetwater Clifton, Jerry Lucas, of course, was there for the end of the 70s run. Bob McAdoo, also with Spencer Haywood. We talked about the late 70s Knicks. Phil Jackson, of course, more in for his first coaching career. Bernard King, of course, had a legendary run with the Knicks in the mid-'80s. Walt Bellamy, Dave DeBuscher, Dick McGuire, part of those early 50s teams, brother of Al. Bill Bradley, Earl Monroe. Richie Garen was kind of one of he was the big star sort of when the Knicks were terrible in the late 50s and early 60s, but he was definitely a great player. Also played for the Hawks later. Carl Braun, one of the underrated guards of the 50s. Harry Gallatin, also part of those 50s teams, was a great big man. And of course, Willis Reed and Walt Frazier, the key stars of those 70s years. And of course, Patrick Ewing, the great stalwart of the franchise in the 80s and 90s.
Yep, and by win shares, the best ever Knick Hall of Famer. So
123 win shares, Walt Frazier second with 108 win shares.
There's a pretty big gap, and then Willis Reed third. I mean, there's a big gap between Frazier and Ewing, clearly above everybody else, and then Patrick Ewing pretty solidly above Walt Frazier in there. And Jason, you were correct. Apologies, the Dikembe Mutombo trade was for Jamal Crawford and Jerome Williams.
Okay. There you go.
And then he was traded by the Bulls to the Rockets for Adrian Griffin, Eric Piakowski, and Mike Wilkes. So,
wow.
Big return for Dikembe.
That is a big remember some guys trade right there.
Yeah, there is some dudes. There is some dudes. And the Bulls initially, they acquired Othella Harrington, a man whose name I will not even try to pronounce, and I don't remember if he did anything, and Frank Williams. So I don't know if the Bulls got a good return for Jamal Crawford at that time. But Jamal Crawford wasn't quite Jamal Crawford at that time. People didn't quite know what he was. It was like, this guy, I don't know. That was still like we're trying to make Jamal Crawford a point guard as opposed to like just let Jamal Crawford like shoot a bunch of shots and score some points like off the bench.
He was miscast early in his career, and if you thought of him as like, he's going to be a great star, that wasn't what he was going to do. But in terms of being Jamal Crawford, I mean, no one has been more Jamal Crawford than Jamal Crawford.
If they just knew that they had Jamal Crawford, they could have just used him as Jamal Crawford. It would have been great.
With the possible exception of World Be Free, World Be Free might be more Jamal Crawford than Jamal Crawford. I'm not sure, but We'll let the scholars debate that one. So yes, so I want to know Patrick Ewing's 123 win shares came in 1,039 games, where Walt Frazier's 108.8 came in 759 games. So quite a few more games that Ewing played. So
sure,
if you're looking at the win shares 48, it's better. But anyway, yes. So we also looked at, for each of these, we're going to talk about Hall of Famers who were either drafted or acquired via trade or some other means, but never played for the franchise. So possible that we have some omissions in these. We definitely try to dig into, do our research, but it's always possible that there's some sort of trade that involved a buyout or something that we missed. So forgive us if we did. For the Knicks, Dolph Shays was actually drafted by the Knicks. However, he went to the Syracuse Nationals, then of the National Basketball League. The two leagues then merged in the next season, and Shays, of course, was the great star for the Syracuse Nationals, but could have been a Knick, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the possible what-if scenario there.
Yeah.
And looking at the possible future Hall of Famers. So Basketball Reference has a great Hall of Fame probability index where they look at the percentage of a chance that these players are going to make it into the Hall of Fame. So former Knicks who are over 50%. We got Carmelo Anthony, 98%. Chauncey Phillips, 84%. Amari Stoudemire, 73%. Those are interesting. I don't know if I would say I don't know if I feel like Amari Stoudemire is a likely Hall of Famer. It's definitely possible. Phillips and Carmelo, I would say, definitely are going to be in at some point.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, and Carmelo's an interesting case too, because like you could, even without his NBA career, his college career, because it is the Basketball Hall of Fame and they do count everything. Sure. Like his college career is like legendary. You know, he goes to Syracuse and just absolutely dominates in the time that he's there. So he's a guy that like, yeah, even if like his NBA career is still pretty prolific too. Like did he live up to expectations? No. Is he as good as LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and the other people? No, but he's still Carmelo Anthony. He still has a very, very significant career. So yeah, him at 98%. Maybe I was a little surprised that it was such a slam dunk for him, and I thought maybe there'd be like a little bit of people saying, I don't know about, but no, when you take in totality of his entire basketball career, he's definitely a guy. But yeah, I'm a little surprised by Amari Stoudemire being 73%. I'd have to kind of dig into that a little bit more and see. I mean, he did, yeah. I mean, he was good. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because now a lot of these guys are going to be in the Hall of Fame are guys that I sort of, you know, their entire career happened in front of me and I was watching, and I don't know that if any point I was watching Amari Stoudemire being like, that guy is a Basketball Hall of Famer. Like he's one of the best to ever do it. I don't know that I ever did that, but maybe statistically you could make that argument.
Yeah, and obviously these are imperfect. You know, these are just kind of looking at the cases statistically, or you know, all NBA accomplishments.
Yeah, or like comps between guys who are in the Hall of Fame. Like, hey, this guy has similar numbers to this guy, so it might. Yeah, who knows what'll happen when. But I think people like Amari Stoudemire, and that usually plays a factor in it too. Are you well liked? Do you have a lot of friends in the league? Then yeah, maybe find your way in. Yeah.
Well, you know, Amari, he's got one first team All NBA, 4 second team All NBA. So that's certainly obviously significant. 6-time All-Star. Looking at his career stats, she is certainly very impressive. 21.9 points per game, 9.1 rebounds per game. Obviously was part of some influential teams. Never won a championship. Was some part of some really good teams. So yeah, I can definitely see it. But I think if I were gonna bet, is he going to be in the Hall of Fame? I would bet probably likely no more than yes, but it's definitely certainly a possibility. I'm actually surprised Phillips isn't already in. That one's a little bit of a surprise to me, given the Finals MVP, given what he's accomplished in his career. I'm sure he'll get there at some point. Yeah, and Carmelo, 98% is a little bit higher than I would have thought, but I mean, he's definitely going to be in at some point.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. All right, so what if scenarios? We're looking at the best what if scenarios involving Hall of Famers for each franchise. So for me, I was thinking, Dolph Shays on those 50 Knicks teams. I mean, you could definitely have seen them, maybe beating the Lakers in the finals, or at least, beating the Royals in 51. The Knicks actually went to 3 finals in a row, 52, 53, and 54, and lost all of those times. You would say 51, 52, 53. The Nationals went in 54. Shays Nationals teams, they went to the finals in 1950. They went there in 54. They won the title in 55. So Shays definitely, carried those Nationals teams. I mean, there were other good players there too, but he was clearly the best player. But if you look at Shays, you think of like the 50s Knicks. So the the 50s Knicks were a little bit like the 70s Knicks, where like it wasn't necessarily just one huge or two huge stars. You know, it was really they were known. They had a lot of really good players. You know, Carl Braun, one of the better guards of his time. Harry Gallatin, you know, one of the better, you know, just great rebounder and scorer. You know, burly big man. Dick McGuire, you know, the great defensive guard. Nat Clifton, who was, you know, really good, you know, defensive player, rebounder. Connie Simmons, Max Zatzlowski, who was one of the great shooting guards of his time. Ernie Vandeweghe, another. So they just had a lot of guys who knew their role. Had a really deep team. Definitely could see the Knicks have been a contender, you know, through probably like 56 or so right before, you know, Russell comes in there. I don't know if it makes that huge of a difference in terms of how Shays is thought about now, but being in New York rather than Syracuse, maybe, you know, leading those Knicks to a championship or two. Yeah, obviously knocking off the Lakers would have been a challenge, of course, but definitely with Shays there and that deep bench, you know, assuming the rest of the roster is basically the same. I think there's definitely a chance for Shays to be just a little bit better remembered than he is for, you know, a franchise that in a city, you know, that doesn't have a team anymore.
Right. In a franchise that there's really not much connection anymore to, you know, the Syracuse Nationals are largely an afterthought. And obviously the Knicks are one of the charter franchises of the NBA, one of the more popular franchises. It's in New York City. I'm right with you. Yeah, I absolutely think that's a huge what if, and yeah, I think he does. Obviously, he makes those teams better, you know, for sure. But yeah, I think more for his legacy and his career, there's no doubt that being on the Knicks in those early days of the NBA would have definitely propelled him a little higher. You know, people like you and me, you know, we know him. People that follow NBA history, probably a lot of listeners to this that know. But I think your person on the street probably has very little idea about Dolph Shays at all. Your average NBA fan, very little idea about Dolph Shays.
Yeah,
and yeah. I don't know if that would. It might still be the case because it's still an era of history that a lot of people just completely forget about or willingly just say plumber. Yada, all that sort of stuff. But you certainly have an advantage if you're playing in New York and you're playing for the Knicks.
Sure. I mean, it's not like Harry Gallatin's a household name for Knicks
in my house
even today. Right. Well, yeah. But yeah, I do think there might be some impact on his legacy. And the 76ers have, you know, done a little bit to keep the Nationals name alive. But obviously, yeah, Syracuse doesn't have a team anymore. It's just not going to quite be the same. But yeah, interesting thought exercise for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's so strange because we saw this past week with, you know, when teams move and they try to, you know, like honor the legacy of past teams. We saw it this week with the Houston Rockets, you know, revealing their jerseys this year that are the San Diego Rockets style. And there was people that are like, who cares about the San Diego Rockets? It's still your franchise. Like, it's fine. Like, embrace it. And I think the 76ers, like you said, have done a good job of saying, like, yeah, we're in Philadelphia and we're the 76ers, but we were the Syracuse Nationals. So, like, that's part of our history. We quote unquote own that history. That's okay to embrace that. And like, yeah, I like that Houston was like, hey, we used to play in San Diego and this is our colors and this is what we did. And everybody being like, these are rip-off Sonics jerseys. What is this? And it's like, well, no, we had them at the same time too. It's, you know, I like it. Personally, I think it's worth doing, especially for franchises that are teams and cities that are kind of forgotten these days. And yeah, Syracuse is an NBA team, and obviously San Diego. I think it's nice to take a nod to those. And yeah, you know, yes, they're your team now, but you know, there's no problem in embracing it.
It'd be really cool if they were able to like play like one game against the Clippers in San Diego this year. You know, like you know, I don't know what the arena situation in San Diego was like, but that'd be
crappy
cool.
Arena's still there. You said the San Diego Sports Arena, I think, is still there. So yeah,
right. So yeah. Exactly.
Or just play on a beach, you know, put a court on a beach and play there. That's honestly the better idea. Yeah. The sand might be a bit of an issue, but whatever. These guys.
Yeah, whatever. Out, so. Yeah. Sand, it gets in everything. Yeah.
Right. It's everywhere. So as far as my what if, mine is more on Willis Reed, who obviously, as we said right there, he is the third most win shares of any Knicks Hall of Famer ever. He's obviously got a monumental career. He is probably a name that most NBA fans know about. He's a Knicks legend, all that sort of stuff. But I do kind of wonder what would have happened had he not hurt his knee. So in his age 29 season, his age 28 season, he hurts his knee. And his age 29 season, he hurts his knee. Plays in only 11 games. Averages only 20 points, 13 rebounds for 5 straight seasons before that. Made the All-Star game in his first 7 seasons, and then when he returns from that season, obviously he comes back to the finals, limps out. He's the guy that everybody's he's the heart and soul of the team or whatever, all that sort of stuff, yada yada. We've always talked about how it really sucks for Clyde Frazier, who's like, well, I actually did like really well in that game. Yeah, can I get a little bit of love here? And they're like, yeah, but that guy came out and limped, and then he won the jump ball. So
yeah, sure,
he's actually the reason. And it's like, all right, whatever. But you know, from that point forward in Willis's career, like it's just never he's never quite as good. His production falls off. He never makes another All-Star game. He never averaged more than 13 points per game or 8 rebounds per game. And I think people forget like how good he was before those injuries and how quickly after those injuries he just couldn't get it back together. I mean, this was a perennial All-Star. For the 5 years prior, like I said, he was averaging 20 points per game. He was getting over 13 rebounds per game. I mean, he was a stud, and he was just entering, yes, in those days, you're not going to play into, some guys did, but most guys aren't going to play, into their 40s. But there's definitely a scenario where he has at least 5 more, or at least three to 5 more, like, very productive 20-plus per game, 10-plus rebound per game seasons, and he just doesn't have that. And I do wonder how different. I mean, he might be like an all-time great. Not now. He's obviously still considered a great, but like it does fall off pretty quickly, and his longevity is not very great. I just do wonder what would have happened with a few more years of high level production and obviously health more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely. I mean, he was obviously a great player. He's obviously a Hall of Famer, clearly. But I think the legend is. That game, the fact that he played for the Knicks, if you look at him, compared to production of some of the other great centers, he doesn't quite, measure up. If he played for like I don't know, if he played for a franchise that does not have nearly as much glory, if he played for the Washington or played for the Hawks or someone, I don't think he'd be quite as, quite the legend that he is, but luckily he played for New York. And again, he was a tremendous player, but yeah, once that injury really happened, he really had like one other strong season, the 73 season, but even that point, I mean, one long season, one full season, but at that point he's averaging 11 points per game, 9 rebounds per game. He just isn't quite the player that he was. They bring in Lucas, obviously, who helps and, delivers that last championship, but really he right after that 71, after that injury, he really falls off, never quite the same player again, for sure.
Yeah, it's just, and I do wonder his legacy might be more of, hey, this guy was a great player, as opposed to, it feels like his legacy a lot is like, yeah, he limped out, he was the heart and soul of the team, yada yada, that sort of stuff. Where right, you could definitely see a couple more years, and obviously, doing what he did and coming out and limping and all that sort of stuff does make it pretty awesome, and it does keep a lot of the there is a certain lore to that or whatever. But yeah, you do wonder what would have happened if he just stayed a little healthier. But regardless.
Right. Yeah, exactly. He's remembered a little bit more as like the mascot of the team as opposed to like the great player of the team, or, one of the 2 great players of the team. And obviously, yeah, if he is able to stay an MVP player for another few years, maybe the Knicks, win another, another championship or 2, so it's certainly, maybe even extends that legacy a little bit. So. All right, so the ultimate Hall of Famer hipster jersey. So if you see a hipster out there, what Knicks Hall of Fame jersey are they most likely to wear? So for me, I picked Tracy McGrady.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Yeah, and I in the interest of fairness, I try to pick different ones than you, but I think McGrady is the play here for sure. To just be different, I'll say Dikembe Mutombo, but I think I honestly, McGrady's my pick.
All right.
That's the number 3 New York Knicks McGrady. It's like some people might be like, does that guy just get like a McGrady jersey on the Knicks? Like, there's probably a lot of people that would just think that this guy, like, either his last name is McGrady, you know what I mean? Like, or like, that he just made a custom jersey of McGrady on the Knicks. He's like, did that guy just think like McGrady's on the Knicks? And then you have to be like, well, actually, he did play for the Knicks, sir. And then you pop up, Basketball Reference and show him. But no, McGrady's the play here for sure. Mutombo would be a fun one, but McGrady's absolutely the one.
So the ultimate Hall of Fame cool kid jersey for me, we'll talk about differences between cool kids and hipsters in a moment. For me, it's I thought maybe Walt Frazier, but I think that because Walt is so like so identified with the franchise and all that announcing, it's sort of like it's almost like he's too
on the
mainstream.
Nose. Yeah, I agree.
So gonna go with Bernard King.
Yeah, dude, Bernard King's the coolest Knick ever. Like, I hate the Knicks, to be honest. Like, I don't like anybody who played for the Knicks. I don't like the Knicks, but I love Bernard King. Bernard King's just the coolest dude ever, man. Like, so bouncing around in a Bernard King jersey, that's going to get my respect for sure. You are a cool kid if you're wearing a Bernard King Knicks jersey, so yes. Yeah.
And the cool kids and the hipsters are similar to me, but I think the hipster jerseys, it's more like there's more irony involved. Where the cool kids, they're into something obscure, but it's more celebratory. Where the hipsters are, it's more ironic. Like, oh, aren't I clever wearing this jersey? So that's the difference for me. So
I'm with you there. Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. Next, we are going to go to my Atlanta Hawks. We're gonna, and boy, this is quite a history here.
I was gonna say the hipster jersey account.
Yeah,
quite large
all right.
For this one.
So we got 25 for this. We got 24 Hall of Famers who have
legacy franchise. This Hawks.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
makes sense with all the titles they won. So
sure. Hey, yeah. That 58 championship. That's a glorious time.
Still flying that flag outside of your house.
But, yeah, absolutely, yes. This is a St. Louis Hawks respecter house for sure. So, all right, we got Red Holzman, played in the 54 season for the Hawks, was later their coach. Bob Hallbricks, boy, if you ever say, okay, Bob Hallbricks, how have I not seen him in the Hall of Fame? Well, you're like, why is he a Hall of Famer? Yeah, that's a good question. I can't really tell you why Bob Hallbricks is a Hall of Famer. Now, he was a pretty big college star for the University of Washington, but played only like 5 years in the NBA, bounced around from teams, had a couple good years for the Pistons, but nothing particularly special. Somehow he got in the Hall of Fame. Don't know.
Friends in right places, I guess.
I guess so, yes. Alex Hannum, of course, later best known for his coaching, played for the Hawks, including on the 57 finals team. Actually, as a famous where he was able to throw a cross court off the backboard pass to Bob Pettit. Unfortunately, for the Hawks, Bob Pettit bricked the close shot, and the Celtics won the championship there. Tracy McGrady, we got Tracy McGrady again. Of course. Yeah. He did play for the Hawks. He played for them in the playoffs. He had one pretty good playoff game there, at least a good playoff half. Was the old McGrady for about a half, and then it was the new McGrady for the second half, and the Hawks lost that series, I believe. Sidney Moncrieff briefly played for the Hawks after
I always forget about this. I always forget that he played for the Hawks.
Well, it wasn't memorable, yeah. Maurice Cheeks, Rod Thorne, of course, known more for his executive career, but he did play for the Hawks in the mid-'60s. Chuck Cooper, one of the African-American pioneers, played for the Hawks briefly. Connie Hawkins, of course, at the end of his career in the 70s, played for the Hawks. Tony Kukoc, those pine for those Tony Kukoc there, was part of the Dikembe Mutombo trade.
I unironically love that like era of the Hawks, like that 2001, 2002. Mostly because I was playing like the NBA 2K games at those times, and I would play online. Yeah, I would always play as the Hawks, and the guys would always laugh, and I'd be like, "Oh, you just wait."
The Hawks? Hey,
because you had Sharif Abdul-Rahim, you had Jason Terry, you had Theo Ratliff just blocking everything left and right. Nazi Mohammed, like that team rocked. Like Jamar Johnson, who people do not. I mean, obviously he had was a car accident, right? That kind of derailed his career, but he was really good. Like put some respect on the 2002 Atlanta Hawks. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta respect those Hawks. Some fun players. You got Glenn Robinson going on. You got a lot of guys in and out.
Robinson, yeah. Like it was a team that had like 10 like good players. Like nobody really great, and that's kind of a problem.
They were most of them were in the wrong part of their career at that point too. Right. All right, you got Slater Martin, who helps the team win a championship in the late 50s. You got Ed McCauley, also part of that championship team, of course, mostly known for the Celtics. You got Richie Garen, also with the Knicks. A lot of crossover between the Knicks and the Hawks. Moses Malone, toward the end of his career, but it wasn't really toward the end of his career. Played like another 5 years, but late in his career, probably like the end of his career as like kind of a starish type player. That was his Hawks run from 89 to 91. Pete Maravich, of course, in the early 70s. Clyde Levalette, one of the better big men of his time in the early 60s. Walt Bellamy, of course, playing with Pistol Pete in the 70s toward the end of his career. Dikembe Mutombo, aforementioned, probably the biggest free agent signing in Hawks history before the 97 season. It wasn't just summer of Shaq, it was also the summer of Dikembe. So was played there till 2001 when he was part of that trade with the Sixers that netted, of course, Tony Kukoc. Lenny Wilkins, of course, during the 60s, one of the great stalwarts for the Hawks. Selmo Beatty, also for some of those 60s Hawks teams, especially toward the end of the 60s, that were really good. Kind of came close to making the finals, but always bumped into the Lakers. The aforementioned Lou Hudson, Cliff Hagan, Dominique Wilkins, and Bob Pettit.
It's a lot of great players through the Hawks, man. Yeah, that's
sure.
It's a lot of cool dudes, a lot of cool. Yeah, it's just a fun franchise history, and they've been around forever, so it makes sense. It's a cool run there for Hawks. Yeah, but that's Bob Pettit and Dominique, similar to the Knicks, like very far ahead of everybody else in terms of win shares. I mean, they do play a lot of games. I mean, Dominique Wilkins playing 882 games as a Hawk. We'll talk about that in a sec. He should have played all of his games as a Hawk, but I'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, Bob Pettit, pretty big jump over Dominique too. I'm kind of surprised by that. I thought Dominique would be a little bit closer in overall win shares, especially playing almost 100 more games than Pettit played. But Pettit was really, really, really good.
He was really, he was really, really damn good. And one of the great power forwards of his time, clutch scorer, just, a really terrific player. So, yes. So now by far this is the franchise with the most Hall of Famers or probable Hall of Famers who were drafted or acquired, but never played for the franchise. So we're going in a chronological order. Bob Cousy was drafted by the Tri-Cities Blackhawks before they moved to Milwaukee, and then before they moved to St. Louis and eventually moved to Atlanta. Then he was traded to the Chicago Stags, who folded before he even played there. And then the Celtics got him in the dispersal draft, and you know what happened after that. Bill Russell, of course, was drafted by the Hawks, famously was traded for Cliff Hagan. Hey, Cliff Hagan, pretty good. Not quite Bill Russell, of course. Bill Russell.
Yeah, not Bill Russell.
Things go over. Julius Irving, we'll talk more about this, but yes, Julius Irving played 3 preseason games for the Hawks, tried to defect from the ABA, did not work out, and he ended up going back to the ABA for a few more years. David Thompson, drafted second overall, I believe, it was first overall in the 75 draft, and decided, hey, I'm going to go with the Denver Nuggets and get this ABA money instead, and did not work out for the Hawks. Hawks also, the number 3 pick, did the exact same thing. So they had the first pick and the third pick in the 1975 draft. Neither one came to the Hawks. Not great for that franchise.
Yikes.
Arvydas Sabonis. You'd be like, wait, the Hawks drafted Arvydas Sabonis. Yes, in the 80s, in 85, I believe, they drafted Arvydas Sabonis, who was playing in Europe at the time. Was tied to the Soviet Union, did not, of course, come to the NBA until much later, and came with the Portland Trail Blazers. But the Hawks, at least had the idea first. It didn't work out for them.
Yeah, well, actually, the Sabonis thing, and I had to clarify this. Because I was always like, man, why did Portland just be like, hey, we'll track this guy? And it's like, wait a minute, somebody else has already drafted him. Well, it got voided because he was under 21 when they drafted him, and they were not allowed to draft somebody under 21. So it got great idea by the Hawks to say, hey, whatever, let's just draft this guy and see what happens. Right. But the NBA was like, well, he's under 21. You can't have him at all. And that's why it was null and void, and then he was done. And that's when the Portland then next year was like, well, he's over 21 now, so we can actually draft him, and let's just draft him and see what happens. And then, of course, he wasn't able to play until, it was 1999 or whatever, until he finally came over. So or 96 when he came over. But that's because I was always wondering why they just didn't let the Hawks have him. I was like, well, that's no fair. They drafted him first, but they drafted him when he was under 21. So hey, a good try to be like, hey, let's see if anybody notices this. What do you think? Okay, you're a Hawks fan. You think they did they know this and were hoping that nobody else did, or were they just like, great, this guy rolls, let's see what happens,
Yeah, well, but I don't know. Must have been a rule for international players, because obviously they could draft guys, if they were U.S. players, they could draft them. Yeah, college players. I mean, must have been someone. So maybe, I don't know if they weren't aware of the rule, or they were trying to challenge the rule, or I have not looked into the details of that. So we'll have to.
Plausible deniability, just I don't know what it is.
But the records in Europe are unreliable. We have no idea how old he is actually. So our best guess, So yes, if anybody else does happen to know, wants to let us know on Twitter at Over and Back NBA, we would love to know. Yes. So we got Pau Gasol, not in the Hall of Fame yet, but 93% probability he's definitely going to be in the Hall of Fame.
He'll be there.
Yeah. He was drafted by the Hawks and was traded for Sharif Abdul-Rahim. Gary Payton was part of the trade that sent Antoine Walker from the Hawks back to the Boston Celtics. The Hawks ended up buying him out, and Gary Payton then ended up going back to the Celtics.
Which I think now, and then rules got made after that were like, all right, look, you can't just trade guys then get them back. This was because it was clear he was only used there for salary, and the Hawks didn't really want him, and yada yada all that. I remember a lot of hand wringing about that. It ultimately didn't matter that much, but there was a lot. Trust me, if you were alive at this time, a lot of hand wringing about. Oh, the Celtics have done it again. It's like, all they did was acquire not very good Antoine Walker anymore. And
hey, wait a minute. Let's not say anything we can't take back. Okay,
right. But if you remember at the time, they were like, well, this is it. Boston's won. It was like
Boston's back, baby.
Apoplectic about the Boston.
That Danny Age always
Trader Danny does it again, and it's like, they were fine.
Yeah. All right. and then Carmelo Anthony as well, also it was part of the was traded from OKC to the Hawks. Did not play. The Hawks they were nice and gave him a jersey though, at least. So that was nice. 98%. So obviously this is early, but Luka Doncic looking that could be one too.
I think there's a pretty solid chance that unless something goes horribly wrong in the next couple of years, that he's probably in there. And of course, drafted by the Hawks, traded for Trae Young.
Yeah, so. And I not that I mind Trae Young's great too, but yes, Doncic obviously is gonna likely to be a no doubt Hall of Famer. Trae Young probably not going to reach that level. Anyway, still a lot of fun. All right, we got our possible future Hall of Famers. We got Dwight Howard. We got 99% Dwight Howard. He's definitely it. I don't know 99%.
For sure. Anybody who says he's not is a dork, and they need to shut up. So.
Yeah. Vince Carter, 95%. Definitely he'll be in soon. I believe. Maybe not first ballot, but he'll be in there for sure. Rajon Rondo is at 60%.
Yeah, I gotta talk to those guys. Are we sure?
Right. And Joe Johnson, 50%. So I'm definitely curious about the Hall of Fame prospects for Rondo. So Rondo's been a 4-time All-Star, only one time All-NBA. It was third team. 4-time he's been on the All-Defensive team. He led the league in assists 3 times. He led the league in steals 1 time. So,
leading the league in assists 3 times probably helps a little bit, but you watch them play, and they were all defensive team, a bunch of fake assists.
Well,
I'm kidding, but
right. And then ISO Joe, 7-time All-Star, of course. You can't say Joe Johnson without 7-time All-Star Joe Johnson. 1-time All-NBA third team. He is tied for second all-time in game-winning buzzer beaters. He has 8, which is tied with Kobe Bryant. Jordan has the most with 9. So, I don't know. That's interesting.
I kind of like ISO Joe's Hall of Fame chances more than I like Rajon Rondo's.
He does. He has more than 20,000 points, I believe, which is a threshold that like most guys who are over 20,000 points are in there. There's a couple of exceptions, but so that helps him in the club. Yeah, I could see it. I mean, it's kind of like maybe somewhere like Lou Hudson where it takes a very long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see it. So if in case you're wondering, Al Horford is at 12%. Paul Millsap is at 5.5%. I would say Horford does seem kind of possible because his college career might boost him to put him in there. It is a little bit, the college career definitely helps. There's very, very few guys. I think Bob Hallbricks is the only guy who I can think of who whose pro career isn't the most of the reason why they're in, at least as players. Even somebody like Bill Walton or like Ralph Sampson, they had good to great NBA careers, but obviously their college career takes them over the top. They may have been shortened careers where, Al Horford's definitely been a solid to really good NBA player for a long time, whether he's in there or not. But I think the college career, there's the type of thing where I could see him going in a lot because of the merits of his college career.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. So our best what if scenario for me. Julius Irving, Pete Maravich, on the same team with a pretty good supporting cast. Before the 73 season, Doc tried to join the NBA with the Hawks. They've got Pistol Pete, as we mentioned. They got Lou Hudson. They got Walt Bellamy and a new coach in Cotton Fitzsimmons. He played 3 preseason games there before he was legally forced to return to the Virginia Squires. The Hawks ended up being fined. They were forced to send 2 second-round picks to the Bucks because, hey, Milwaukee actually had drafted Julius Irving, and they had his NBA draft rights. So the NBA didn't mind so much of him coming from the Squires. It was more about the fact that he was playing for the Hawks instead of the Bucks, the team that drafted him. But if they'd been able to wrangle past that Hawks team without Irving finished with 46 wins. They took the 68-win Celtics 6th game in the playoffs. So maybe potentially, it's not hard to see them being a title contender with Irving, even as young as he was, because he was only in his 2nd season. So what do you think of that, Rich?
Yeah, that's awesome. Think of those 2 guys, like 2 of the more dynamic, 2 of the cooler players. That is a team that who knows how much they win. At that point, Irving is really good, so they probably are pretty good, and they do probably win a lot, like you said, even without those guys. 46 wins and a decent playoff team, a decent run, a good supporting cast, and you're combining, Julius Irving with Pete Maravich. That would have been. As far as the fit, I do wonder if they would have fit together because Pete Maravich is obviously kind of a tough guy to fit with for most NBA players, especially at that time. But I can't imagine not enjoying a Julius Irving Pete Maravich team up with, like you said, with Lou Hudson and Walt Bellamy and all those guys. that just sounds really, really awesome. So it is a little disappointing that did never happen because that'd be really, really cool to watch.
That would have been really exciting and fun. Yeah, you just kind of imagine that. Yeah, would they really have been a title contender? I think it's possible. I mean, obviously Irving was so great.
Was great.
That's
a
good surrounding. And it seems like he would fit well with that. I mean, that team does seem like it would fuse together pretty well. Like it seems like those other pieces could be complementary. You know, like Maravich would have had to sort of kind of like how he was with the 80 Celtics, obviously much later in his career. I mean, he might have had to adjust a bit to kind of fit in there. And would Irving have been seen, like would people have seen Irving as really the true, you know, the icon that he later would be? Obviously he was only in his second year, but he was so great that maybe he just would have just demonstrated that right away. There wouldn't have been those kind of issues.
Right. Yeah, maybe it's not fair to you know, paint Maravich as a guy who, you know, wanted to take every single shot or versus a guy that had to do that for the teams that he played for. You know, largely not that, especially in New Orleans, where it was like, hey, we're awful because we traded everybody to get you. So you are our only player. So shoot the ball every single time and do everything you can every single time. You know, that sort of stuff where, yeah, maybe if he comes there, it's like, all right, no, or this guy's better than me, so I'm fine being the secondary guy here. I'm fine doing that. I can definitely see that happening and those two maybe being able to work together. But yeah, just dynamic, like the most dynamically cool team you could possibly imagine. I mean, just oozing 70s, that team. I mean, just in the best way possible. Would have been a blast to see that. But my what if is about Dominique Wilkins, and I mentioned it before. I've always wondered what his career would have looked like and should have looked like had he stayed with the Atlanta Hawks. Had they not traded him to the Clippers, had he not bounced around and played in Boston and Orlando and San Antonio and then having to go to play in Greece and go to play in Italy, like that's just not fair to Dominique Wilkins. He should have ended his career as an Atlanta Hawk. He should have been a one franchise guy. And I think things would have been, I mean, because, you know, obviously he started breaking down a little bit physically and stuff, but he's great with the Clippers. He still has a great year with the Clippers. He's pretty damn good with the San Antonio Spurs, too, when he comes in, you know, 1997. 1997! That's a long time. Dominique Wilkins still playing. That should have all happened as the Hawks. I really just, I wonder how much better his career would have been, how much more legacy he would have had. And he's still Dominique Wilkins, and he's still 100% synonymous with the Hawks. But I do think that would have been a little bit easier. He maybe would not have had to bounce around and doing different leagues. Like, I just think things would have been so much cleaner with his career, and there'd be so, you know, we'd have a few more years to say, well, wow. Look, I mean, he probably does compete with, like we said there, Bob Pettit, you know, 136 win shares, Dominique only 107.4. You know, Dominique plays 3 to 4 more years with Atlanta. Like, he's probably the top dude in Atlanta Hawks history. So, yeah, it always bothers me that he didn't play his entire career with the Hawks. It's like, it just should have been that way.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you, and also, you know, the fact, of course, when he was traded, they had the best record in the East, and they ended up with 57 wins, and you know, they fell in the second round of the playoffs. You know, if they have Wilkins there, hey, are they a team? You know, do they have a shot at beating the Knicks and going to the finals that year? You know, or at least a better shot at it. You know, obviously, if he's able to take them to the finals too, that makes a big difference in terms of his view. And yeah, it would have been great if he would have been able to stay there. Of course, I'm not sure if they're able to rebuild their team. I'm not sure if they're able to get Mutombo, you know, later on as a free agent, if Wilkins is still there and making the kind of money that he would have made. But yeah, and just in terms of, you know, the relationship between the Hawks and Atlanta definitely changed when Wilkins was traded. That was a heartbreaking moment for a lot of the fans. And it, on a certain level, did make some basketball sense, but it completely changed the relationship with the Hawks and the city. And I do think that, and obviously, hey, Dominique pretty much post-retirement has been synonymous with the franchise as a broadcaster and as an executive and everything. So they've done a lot to make up for that. But yeah, it did. It would have been, even if it hadn't have worked out the best basketball-wise, just in terms of just like, you know, having that one guy on your franchise the entire time, your relationship with the fans, that certainly, I think there would have been some benefit to that as well.
Yeah, and just him, the fact that he had to bounce around a bunch too, it just kind of stunk. Because it's like, this guy is too good to be, you know, playing in Greece and Italy and playing for the Orlando Magic and stuff. It's like, nah, come on, this guy, let's do a retirement tour. Let him finish. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, fan service wise, keeping him on the Hawks would yeah, maybe they don't compete as much as they did in the mid 90s. Maybe they don't get Mutombo and that sort of stuff, but still, it's like, man, it and like you said, it did hurt. It did hurt the PR a lot in that city, because it was just like, wow, they traded the franchise guy, they traded the legacy guy in the middle of a season when we were doing well, you know, for it just, the optics of it were just real tough to deal with.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So, all right, hipster jersey, I'm going to go with Tony Kukoc.
I gotta go Tracy McGrady again. I think,
right?
And you, I think you own one of these Tracy McGrady Atlanta Hawks jerseys, right? Don't you?
I do not own a Tracy
well, you need
McGrady
to change that. I don't know how you know, but
I do need. Yeah, I had a Glenn Robinson Atlanta Hawks jersey for a while.
Oh, that rocks.
It was over. Yeah, it was too big for me, so I ended up getting rid of that one. But it was a nice thought anyway. So I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with Connie Hawkins as our backup one. You get that nice 70s fit. You know, you've got you got Hawk on the Hawks. So I think that one, but that one might be a little bit, even for the hipsters, that one might be a little bit too obscure.
Yeah, that's a little too on the note. Yeah, that might border on the cool kid jersey. But yeah, I'm going McGrady again. I think I'm going to go McGrady for every one of these. So
all right.
I want to see the guy who owns all these random Tracy McGrady jerseys. So
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I would say, in terms of the cool kid jersey. So this one actually might kind of lean toward the hipsters just because it's a bit obscure. It would be Julius Irving. Obviously, you got that Julius Irving, 73 Hawks preseason jersey, and that, of course, that's still that's the pistol Pete. That's the lime green jersey. So you got some extra,
That's so the pick. Yeah, that's absolutely the pick. Like I was also going to say Wilkins because he's just the coolest dude ever, and those 80s Hawks jerseys rock. But I mean, it's Julius Irving. If you show up and you're wearing the lime green Julius Irving Hawks jersey, like you are the coolest person on the earth. So it's Julius Irving.
I'm gonna, actually, I'm gonna have to say for the hipster jerseys. I also think that maybe Mutombo, because you've got that like late 90s, like
the Hawk, the big Hawk that takes up the entire midsection of the.
Although apparently those jerseys are like considered good to some people, so it's hard for me to even judge.
I don't want to get into it.
If you're if you're a certain age, I guess that's what you grew up with. I try not to judge. But
no. Well, I think we're gonna have to bring that.
We're gonna judge.
I think before the season starts, because we've created a monster here in terms of like, because it was in the 90s, it must have been good, and it's not. No, it's not true. So maybe we'll do it because we have to bring back our 1999 jersey episode where we declared that 1999 was the absolute worst year for basketball jerseys, because like. I want to say 75% of the 1999 jerseys are being bought back like this year as like, a legacy. We're finally back. And then, we also need to dunk on the Wizards for calling their mid-2000s jerseys iconic and legendary.
Iconic, yeah. Iconic.
The iconic Brendan Haywood jersey is finally here.
Yes.
Synonymous with Richard Hamilton and
synonymous with the first-round exit. Yes. That's
God damn it. I'm so upset.
All right, Rich, before we get to the next team, we want to take this time to let our listeners know that this episode of Over and Back brought to you by StatHead, the most powerful research tool in sports. StatHead is powered by the sport reference sites that you trust and use every day, including for listeners of the show, of course, basketballreference.com. And, for this show, StatHead made it so easy for us to find all of the Hall of Famers who played for each franchise. All we did, we went to stathead.com. We checked a box that said was in the Hall of Fame. We searched for each franchise. It just gave, a list of each player. We reverse sorted by win shares, included anyone in the Hall of Fame, even if they're there for coaching or non-playing reasons. Made it easy for us just to get these basic names on there. And then we did of course, we did our research after that.
Yeah, it was nice and easy. Yeah, we were able to obviously also on Basketball Reference look up the Hall of Fame probability and that sort of stuff. But yeah, it made it very easy. StatHead and it very, very often does on this show make it very easy to do the research. So you can also do your own research or join along in the research that we do using our exclusive promo code BACK to get a $20 off annual subscription to any of stathead.com's products. So, hey, even if you're a basketball fan and you're like, hey, I really want to dig into Baseball Reference or I really want to dig into Football Reference, you can do all of that at stathead.com. Yeah, you get the promo code BACK to get $20 off an annual subscription to any of stathead.com's products. That includes the basketball site, the football site, the hockey site, the baseball site, all the stuff that they have there over at stathead.com. Again, promo code BACK to get $20 off an annual subscription to any of their products. And we, of course, thank them for sponsoring this week's show and giving us the tools to take our research to the next level.
Absolutely. So now we've got the Boston Celtics. So as we mentioned earlier, the Knicks, 25 players in the Hall of Fame, the Hawks, 24. Well, the Celtics get out a few more. 42 Celtics.
God.
been in the Hall of Fame. It's understandable. I mean, you know, they had a lot of success.
Franchise. I'd say they're a good franchise. Yeah.
And not bad. Yeah. So, all right. So listing them off.
Some of these guys, though. I mean, some of these guys are like, oh, yeah, right.
Yeah. So they played for the Bucks. Yeah. Bob Hallbricks. We've already talked about Bob Hallbricks.
Screw this guy. We're not talking about him anymore.
two games for the Hawks. Excuse me. 2 games for the Celtics in the 55 season. We got Carl Braun played there. The Knicks legend played there at the end of his career. Artis Gilmore. We talked about Artis Gilmore in a recent episode on the Celtics. Not a great stint there. 47 games in the 88 season. Bob McAdoo, 20 games there in the 79 season, kind of at the nadir of the Celtics. We got Pete Maravich, as we mentioned, played there in 1980 season. John Thompson, of course, there for as a legendary Georgetown coach, was a big man for the Celtics. Wayne Embry, another great Cincinnati Royals great, later, of course, famous executive for the Bucks and the Cavs. Shaquille O'Neal, we memorable Shaquille O'Neal 2011 season stint with the Celtics. That was a lovely time for everyone. Clyde Levalette toward the end of his career as well. Yeah, a lot of guys at the end of their career, of course, come to the Celtics trying to win those championships or get that glory. Dave Bing in the 78 season. Dominique Wilkins, leaving the Clippers for the Celtics, plays there in the 95 season. Don Barksdale, one of the early African-American pioneers in the NBA. Handy Andy Phillip played there in the 57, 58 seasons. Bill Walton, of course, part of that 86 title team. Gary Payton is there, played there in the 2005 season. Of course, was traded to the Hawks, then went back to the Celtics, signed there before going to the Heat later, of course. Arnie Rison, toward the end of his career, of course, mostly played with the Royals. Chuck Cooper, another one of the African-American pioneers in the league, played in the early 50s. Charlie Scott was part of that 76 championship team, and also the man that he was traded for. Paul Westfall was part of that 74 championship team before going to the Suns. Dino Raja just recently went into the Hall of Fame. Of course, the pioneer in played in Europe. Well, one of the European players came over in the 90s and influenced the NBA. Tiny Archibald, of course, came in the ended up playing for the Hawks, or excuse me, for the Celtics. He had the Hawks, my brain, was on the 81 championship team, revived his career after, having some injuries and a bunch of other stuff. Dennis Johnson, another guy who revived his career by being on the Celtics in the late 80s. Bayley Howell also was part of the 68 and 69 championship teams, kind of an underrated great for those teams. We got Casey Jones, we got Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett, of course. Frank Ramsey, another one of the great sixth man of his time in the late 50s, early 60s. Jojo White was stalwart for the Celtics in the 70s. Tom Satch Sanders played there for the 60s and early 70s. Tom Heinsohn, of course, the Tommy gun. Tom Heinsohn, of course, the icon of the franchise for so many reasons. You got Don Nelson, plays there in the 60s and into the 70s, kind of bridges those two eras. Ed McCauley, one of their great players in the early 50s, leaves before they end up winning a championship. Bill Sharman, another one of their great players of the 50s, one of the great shooting guards of his time. Dave Cowens, Bob Cousy, Sam Jones, guys we've talked about a lot, of course, on the show. And then we got Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish of the great 80s teams. We got John Havlicek, who bridges the eras of the 60s and 70s, great sixth man before he becomes a great star in his own right. You got Paul Pierce, you got Larry Bird, and then you close, of course, with the late, great Bill Russell.
Bravo. All right, take a drink, take a breath. There
All right,
that was awesome. You. Yeah, a lot of guys there, a lot of dudes.
Yeah, a lot of guys
on those franchises. And yeah, Bill Russell, obviously all-timer in win shares. Pretty significantly above Larry Bird as well. I always thought those guys were a little bit closer. Russell plays a decent amount more games than Larry Bird, but yeah, I always thought Bird was at least a little bit closer. And Paul Pierce, shockingly, very, very close to both those guys. Havlicek and Pierce, both very, very close to those guys too. Closer to Bird more so than Bill Russell, but yeah, Pierce did play over 1,000 games for the Boston Celtics. This is pretty nuts, but there you go. Yeah, so that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of dudes played for the Celtics. Good for them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Hall of Famers drafted or required but never played for the franchise. Well, the Celtics only need to lament Cliff Hagan, of who definitely was Red Auerbach really wanted to keep, but was like, well, all right, for Bill Russell, I'll go ahead and give up Cliff Hagan. And it worked out pretty well for the Celtics.
I would say they probably don't regret that trade too much. So
yes. All right, possible future Hall of Famers. So we've got Chauncey Phillips. I kind of forget. Yeah, the beginning of his career, of course, was on the Celtics, 84%, as we mentioned. Kyrie Irving, of course, loved by Celtics fans.
Oh, yeah, they cannot wait. When he goes into the hall, I hope he is adorned in a Boston Celtics jersey, and the crowd, the sea of green, just cheering on their legendary player, Kyrie Irving. Cannot wait for that to occur. So.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say that, and of course he still has things that he possibly could accomplish in his career. But he's 84%, which I was a little bit higher than I was.
Already?
I was
That's
kind of thinking.
wild. Yeah.
Right. I mean, he's done a lot, obviously. I mean, he's been in part of some important teams. He's a great scorer. I mean, it's easy to kind of forget all of the great things he's done in his career because of all the weirdness. But yeah, he's definitely, he's averaged 23 points per game in his career, 5.7 assists. Looking at some of his other accomplishments as well, he's definitely he's been one of the best point guards of his era. So yeah, I mean, definitely, I would think definitely belongs in the Hall of Fame at some point. Has 3 All NBA appearances, so. He's got a good resume already, but yes, I'm a little surprised that he's quite that high. And also they've got Rajon Rondo and Joe Johnson, who we talked about their Hall of Fame probabilities before. So, okay. So best what if scenario. Well, honestly, this is the world really need a Celtics championship. We think that. I think pretty much everything has gone the way that it probably should have gone for them.
Yeah, I'm not too interested in that, but I think McAdoo is probably an interesting one. If he'd stuck with the Celtics through the early '80s, could it have worked? What would have happened with McAdoo, Bird, Collins, Maxwell, Maravich on the '80s Celtics? That would have been kind of fun. But I'm kind of with you too. All of it felt dirty and icky. It's just like I don't really want to give the Celtics more. I don't want them to get another what if. No more what ifs. They've had enough. They've had enough damn titles and enough damn wins. We don't need any more. So
yeah, I mean, again, if you think about McAdoo there, I mean, you've got in theory, okay, you don't trade McAdoo, so you've got McAdoo, Bird, Cowens, Maxwell, and Maravich on the 1980 Celtics, assuming they pick up Maravich. I mean, if you look at how McAdoo produced in 1980 with the Pistons, it was definitely the worst of his career in terms of PER and BPM. Yeah. He was still a productive scorer, though. I mean, it wasn't like he was garbage. He was definitely not a great player that year, but he was still, producing as a scorer and he was also probably not motivated because the Pistons were, terrible immediately. And, he might have played harder if he was in the Celtics. However, but yeah, the fit and the chemistry don't seem like they would have been good. He and Cowens hated each other. Obviously, Auerbach didn't even want him on the team. He hated the trade. He was happy to get rid of him. So, I don't know if McAdoo at that point would have been in the same mindset he was, a couple years later when he had bounced around a little bit more. He joined the Lakers at that point, was willing to accept a role off the bench. I don't know if that would have been the case in 80 with the Celtics, but I don't know, maybe just Bird being around fixes some of those problems. I mean, sure. It's possible, but yeah, I think more than likely does not work out well. Also, without trading McAdoo, hey, the Celtics never get the number 1 pick, and they're not able to make the trade that netted them McHale and Parrish. So long term, that 1 year, maybe it helps. Maybe if you do some mental gymnastics and think, okay, you get the best possible McAdoo, yeah, maybe they could win the championship that year, but definitely it's not good for the long haul for sure.
Right, and the other one that I would maybe bring up is obviously Reggie Lewis. If he does not pass away, and you can and you combine him with Dino Raja, who we mentioned a little bit earlier, who did not have a very prolific NBA career, but could have definitely been a guy that you would have seen as like a good second or third guy on a resurgent Celtics team, throughout the 90s. Is that team win a title? I don't know if the Reggie Lewis, Dino Raja Celtics are winning any titles or whatever, but it certainly would have made the mid 90s not be so much of a depressing era in Celtics history. I mean, I wasn't depressed, but I'm sure Boston was. So I was perfectly fine with the Celtics having a little bit of a patch where, you know what, why don't you guys go off to the side for a little bit, let other teams dominate for a while. So, but that would be the one. I mean, obviously Reggie Lewis not a Hall of Famer, but Dieter Raja, a guy we did mention earlier, it would have been interesting to see those two guys together, kind of easing in from the post-Bird years into something maybe a little bit different in the mid 90s. And instead it was Dino Raja and like Sherman Douglas. It was not that interesting or fun. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, now we have the Philadelphia 76ers.
We got to pick some jerseys. Right?
Oh, I jumped ahead. Wow, how dare I? Yes, the ultimate Hall of Famer hipster jersey. I got to go Dominique Wilkins.
Yeah, and that I think it could also apply to a cool kid jersey. I think wearing a Dominique Wilkins Celtics jersey is equal parts ironic and equal parts cool. It's tough. Okay. You know what I mean? Because it's still Dominique. And it's a deep cut. I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit of both. It's weird because I would also be like, this guy's kind of an asshole. But then I would also be like, that guy's kind of cool though, because that's a hell of a cool. That's a really cool jersey. So because he's wearing a Celtics jersey, so I'm already like, this guy. I don't know about this guy. But then he turns around and it's Wilkins. I'm like, man, I don't know.
But you're kind of making fun of the Celtics too, yeah. So
yeah. It's you see what I mean? It's tough. Right. You got to talk to the guy. Then you got to have to have a conversation to see where he aligns on the. So I think it could be equal parts for sure.
So for the cool kid jersey, I'm going Don Nelson. I mean, you got once you're kind of celebrating like a bit of an obscure era in Celtics history because those 70s teams don't quite. I mean, they were good, but they don't quite get the shine that the Russell teams and the Bird teams get. Obviously, you get Don Nelson, the eccentric, the mad genius, eccentric personality, weird coach. I mean, you celebrate a very kind of specific strain of NBA history when you got Don Nelson. So I think
and a lot of other strains with current Don Nelson.
There you go. Nice.
If you're at a concert getting enjoying the concert, you're doing a little ode to Don Nelson, I'm sure. So.
It's almost like you're celebrating the 08 Warriors when you wear the Don Nelson song.
Yes. right.
In some way. Yeah, exactly.
Steven Jackson is being celebrated while you're while you're doing
exactly.
That, so.
Yeah. Right.
I'm going to go with Dino Raja, the aforementioned Dino Raja. I think that'd be really cool to be walking around in Dino Raja. You're probably Croatian. There's a good chance. There's like a 90% chance you're a Croatian guy. But if you're just like a random dude wearing a Dino Raja shirt, if you're just like a random American guy wearing it, then I think you're ultra cool, man. That's really cool.
Nice.
Like a good old Dino Raja. I don't know if Dino. He doesn't have any bad things in his life, does he? I forget if Dino Raja. I think he's fine, right?
All right. I don't think.
I guess it depends if you're from like Yugoslavia or whatever. You might not. I don't know about. I'm not getting involved in any of that stuff. No, I don't know anything about that. So
that's not our. That's not
my forte. The civil wars and stuff. I don't do any of that. I'm just talking about basketball wise. I think he's pretty cool. So all right, we'll go with that.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Okay.
And I think he told Rick Pitino to suck his dick too. So
that's great. Yeah,
I think it was like,
that's great.
You suck. I'm out of here. Bye.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, no, that ultimately earns him merit in my book.
right.
Yeah, that's going to overcome a lot of sins.
For sure.
Yeah, right. All right. So now the 76ers. The only 22 players for the 76ers, slightly lower than I might have expected. I mean, obviously the Sixers have not, they've not won a great many championships, but I was expecting a little bit higher, perhaps. Anyway, we got Bob McAdoo. Yes, he played in the 86 season, played very end of his career, played for the 76ers, 29 games. We got Chris Webber. Who could forget the Chris Webber era for the 76ers, the great Webber-Iverson experiment, post-injury.
He couldn't run or jump. But he could still shoot a little from the mid range. So it was
he could pass. Yeah,
he could pass. He had a headband. He was kind of fat. It was a Chris Webber for sure.
He had a headband. Yeah, it was a delightful.
Chris Webber, but it was a Chris Webber for sure.
It was a Chris Webber. Yeah. So we got Tony Kukoc. We got Bailey Howell. We got Alex Hannum. Early on his career played for there was the Nationals, of course, at that point. So. We got George Yardley. George Yardley, of course, moving on from he moved on from the Pistons, had a brief stint with the Nationals. Yeah, those 59 Nationals were pretty tough. They gave the Celtics a bit of a scare in the playoffs that year. Dikembe Mutombo, of course, previously mentioned Earl Lloyd, another great African-American pioneer, won the championship in 55 with the Nationals. Al Servey, of course, great NBL and later NBA star with the Nationals after coming from the Royals in the NBL. George McGinnis played a few years with the Sixers, of course, defecting from the ABA. Moses Malone, had a couple of stints with the Sixers, of course. Chet Walker was part of that great 60s team, including the 67 championship team that set the wins record for a single season. Bobby Jones, of course, in the 80s, one of the complementary pieces for those Sixer teams with Julius Irving. Larry Costello, just going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Before he was a coach and a contributor in the NBA, was also an excellent player for the Sixers. Billy Cunningham, another the great star in the NBA and also had a couple years in the ABA. Will Chamberlain, of course. Allen Iverson. Don't need to say too much about Allen Iverson. Obviously, great icon of the game. Took the Sixers to the 2001 Finals. Maurice Cheeks, another one of the great 80s pieces. Hal Greer, long stint with the Nationals and the 76ers, part of that 67 team. Charles Barkley, Julius Irving, and Dolph Shays, of course, talked about earlier with the Nationals. His last year did play with the 76ers franchise, and he was the coach for the 76ers for a couple of years. So, yep. All right, yeah, I was shocked to see this, but apparently, and none that we could find, at least, no Hall of Famers who were drafted or acquired but never played for the franchise. So, hey, they've done a good job.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. We did our research. I didn't find any. I was thinking off the top of my head, and a couple days later, I'm sure there's probably somebody we may have missed, but I don't know. I really tried, and I was not able to find anybody.
Yeah, the draft is easy to find. The trades in which maybe a guy was acquired but then got bought out, couldn't find any. So don't think there are any. So all right, possible future Hall of Famers. You got James Harden, 99% for James Harden. He's been MVP once or twice? Has he been MVP twice?
Once, I think once. Yeah, I don't know if
he's been like second in MVP several times.
There's been several times where he was
a lot all NBA. I mean, clearly going to be Hall of Famer. Just whatever negatives you think of James Harden, I think he's clearly.
Oh no, yeah, one of the greatest scorers in NBA history.
Probably first ballot Hall of Famer.
Oh yeah.
Dwight Howard, as we mentioned, also 99%, and Jimmy Butler.
All these legacy Sixers, all these legacy Philadelphia 76ers.
Right.
Jimmy Butler, Dwight Howard, and James Harden.
Yeah. We'll see what it ends up being with James Harden. I mean, maybe he can carry them with Embiid to some glory. I mean, they seem like they're reasonably, despite all the bad vibes the issues that they've had. They could be a really good team.
It's not impossible.
No. Absolutely. So by the way, Harden 6 times All NBA first team, and 1 time All NBA third team. And yes, he has finished. He won MVP twice. He finished second twice. He finished third 1 time. So been in contention for that for a long time. So so what if scenario? Why don't you do yours first, Rich?
All right, my what if is Dikembe joins the team and Iverson single-handedly leads the Sixers over the Lakers to win the NBA Finals. I just think how much of the NBA changes, how much the league changes. Do teams then buy in finally to the idea that, hey, a single player, a point guard at that? Because at this time, it was still a point guard cannot lead a team to it. And really, it's still, with the exception of, maybe once Steph Curry comes in and kind of changes the entire trajectory of the game and the geometry of the game. It was still, you can't win a championship with like one guy and that guy, the best guy in your team, being a point guard or whatever. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work. People ignore Isaiah Thomas or whatnot. But for the most part, it was like, this little guy is not going to be able to lead you. But more than anything, like Iverson, the way that Iverson played, his persona, everything about Allen Iverson, if he wins that title, it's just, I think so much of NBA history changes and just so much the game changes, the way that people play changes, the way Iverson's perceived changes. Like there's so many things that I think are just completely different. If he wins that title, single-handedly beats the Lakers, single-handedly beats the vaunted Lakers, and like it's not impossible. Like obviously they won the one game and then they very quickly got. But I do think that so much of the NBA history changes, so much of Iverson's legacy changes if he wins that title.
New message.
What up? It's Heather's cousin. You dated her in college, or maybe you were just in the same class. Anyway, I heard you bought a boat, my man. Let's hit the water. Oh, and Heather told me you always liked snacks and stuff, so I could totally bring some chips.
When you get a boat, you also get new friends. Make sure Progressive's one of them, and get coverage today for as little as $100 a year.
Hey, also, I'm a little short on cash, so can you cover the chips? Thanks. I can see why Heather liked you.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Annual premium for basic liability policy not available in all states.
Football fans, grab your favorite food and a cooler full of drinks. It's time to tailgate. Whether you're serving up hot dogs and hamburgers or breaking out the barbecue, feel free to kick things up a notch with Frank's Red Hot. And when you're looking to cool it down, reach for a nice cold Bud Light. The team's going all the way this year. Make sure you're there to cheer them on. And don't forget to fire it up with Frank's Red Hot and cool it down with Bud Light. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch Bud Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah, it'd be interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, but they made that trade, at least in part, because Ratliff got hurt, right?
Yes, I believe that's the case. Yeah.
So if Ratliff hadn't gotten hurt and they kept because they did sacrifice some depth for that team. I mean, obviously they got Mutombo, but they lost Kukoc. They lost some of their depth in that team. If Ratliff doesn't get hurt and they're able to keep the team as it was, what difference? It maybe doesn't make any difference. Maybe they still lose, or maybe they're even worse without that. I don't know. Obviously, there was a close call against the Raptors in the playoffs, but that might be an interesting what if too as well. I mean, of course, the idea here is that Iverson's able to do that, or maybe they just get like one more piece of depth, because I mean that series against the Lakers. I mean, the Sixers put up a tough fight, but it wasn't a particularly close series. But yeah, that's an interesting one, because that definitely, I think the perception of Iverson obviously changes a lot, and you're right, the perception of small versus big changes a lot, and that obviously happens later. But if Iverson's able to kind of break through in that way, that's really interesting.
And also because that team especially catered so much to just Iverson. It
right.
was like, all right, look, how are we going to get the most out of this player? Well, we're just going to surround him with a bunch of guys who don't want to shoot the ball ever, and then he could just shoot the ball. Like, it's just the whole concept of team. It changes when it's like, well, shit, maybe you can just give one guy in your team and let him take every shot, and then the other guys can all be defensive guys and whatnot. And yeah, that could have worked. And yeah, you mentioned Theo Ratliff, and people probably don't know, or if you don't remember, Ratliff was great that year. Like, he was an all-star that year. He led the league in blocks. He was on his way to having like a career year, and then he got hurt, and that's when they were like, all right, crap, like, what do we got to do, because we need to, fill in the gap and they get to Kemi Mutombo, which fills in that gap perfectly. Hey, we have a guy that's blocking a lot of shots and he's hurt. What do we do? Oh, acquire the other greatest blocker in the league at the time with Kemi Mutombo. But yeah, you're absolutely right. If that team maybe doesn't even need to Kemi Mutombo and could still be tremendous that year. Yeah, it's so much of NBA history I think changes.
Yeah, for sure. For me, it's what if Billy Cunningham doesn't get hurt in the 68 playoffs? The Sixers are able to beat the Celtics and then able to likely, win the championship over the Lakers that year. And then, hey, does Wilkes decide to stay in Philly after back-to-back titles instead of leaving and going to the Lakers at that point? Do the Sixers have a chance to have like a legitimate dynasty, not just, one great championship year? I mean, I think that's definitely that changes Wilkes' legacy a lot. That changes the Sixers' legacy. That changes the Celtics' legacy. That changes the Lakers' legacy of all those different times. So that's definitely a big one for me.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, it definitely. His career and the Sixers kind of changed a lot with that.
Right.
So
right, absolutely. So, all right, Ultimate Hall of Fame hipster shoes. Okay, so this one isn't really ironic, but I didn't see the Sixers having like a great ironic one. The one that you pick was pretty good, but I went Bobby Jones. When in doubt, go with the white guy. That's what I say.
For sure. That's what I tend to
right.
do. I'm going Weber. I'm going especially if it's worn by like kind of a fat guy. It kind of works like the weird, those weird Sixers black jerseys that aren't that good, but people pretended were good. Right. And people probably still to this day pretend they're good, but they're not really that good. And it's like, it's just, Chris Webber walking around.
I think they're bringing those back this year.
I'm sure they are. Again, yeah, I'm sure they are. So we're bringing back the horse, for God's sakes. The Detroit Pistons horse. I mean, anything is anything's up for
back
grabs.
The horse.
Yeah. God. But anything's up. So I like Weber as my hipster jersey. So
okay. All right, that's good. So the ultimate cool kid jersey. I'd love to say Julius Irving, but honestly, it's going to be Allen Iverson. Probably.
Yeah, it's going to be Allen Iverson. But I have the caveat as you probably can. I do not like those like early 2000s 76er jerseys. Yeah. I want Iverson in like the red, like the classic red.
Yeah.
Like I think it was only his first year, maybe his second year in the league. Like that's the one. The Sixers, just classic Sixers.
I like it.
That's the play there.
Pre cornrows Iverson. Yeah. The Iverson, the end of his career, because of course he came back to Philly toward the end of his career.
Right. Yeah, he did wear those red jerseys then. Yeah.
Yeah, those were nice too. So yeah. Not quite as iconic, but for the cool kids, you want a little bit of the obscurity there. So I think that's a good one. I dig it
for sure.
All right. We've got the Los Angeles Lakers. Oh, only 31 as compared to 42.
They are definitely less
Celtics.
than the Celtics. Yeah, it's a lot less than the Celtics. Los Angeles. What are you guys doing over there?
What are you guys doing? Yeah, I don't know. Well, here's what we got. So we've got Dennis Rodman, 1999 season. We got Mitch Richmond trying to hang on to winning that championship in 2002 at age 36. We got Charlie Scott, who's on the 78 team that was derailed because of the of course, because of the Kermit Washington, Reed Tomjanovich fight. We got Zelmo Beatty, who came back to the NBA, played in the 75 season for the Lakers. You got Don Nelson, who before he went to the Celtics had a couple years with the Lakers. You got Spencer Haywood, who's was on the 80 title team, but then got kicked off for drug use and then plotted to murder his coach. You got Slick Leonard. You played with the late 50s, early 60s Lakers before, of course, he went into coaching. That's in the Hall of Fame because he's a coach. You got Pat Riley, who was on the 70s Lakers. Of course, he's in there for his coaching. You got Karl Malone, of course, the wonderful 2004 season for the Lakers. You got Steve Nash. You got spent a couple years with the Lakers. Of course, the now we're having fun Lakers with Dwight Howard and Kobe. Lou Hudson, toward the end of his career, played with the Lakers. Connie Hawkins got a stint with Lakers after the played for the Suns. Gary Payton, 2004 season, along with Karl Malone. Bob McAdoo, of course, had a second stint coming off the bench. Ended up contributing to the 82 and 85 championship teams. Adrian Dantley kind of bounced around early in his career. He had a stint with the Lakers before being traded to the Jazz, where he ended up landing for Spencer Haywood. Clyde Levalette, who was part of the 54 championship team as the backup big for Mikan, and had some standout seasons there. You got Jim Pollard and Slater Martin of the early the Minneapolis Lakers glory days. You got Vlade Divac, of course, he had a couple stints with the Lakers in the early 90s, and then came back for his final year in 2005 after those Kings years. You got Jamal Wilkes, part of the early 80s success teams. Gail Goodrich, you got Will Chamberlain, you got James Worthy, you got Vern Mickelson. They're in the 50s, part of the Mikan Lakers, Minneapolis Lakers teams. You got Shaq, you got Elgin Baylor, you got George Mikan, you got Magic Johnson, you got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you got Jerry West, and you got Kobe Bryant. So those guys don't really need to give too many details on those guys. Those guys pretty much have their names. Yeah,
that final list, man. Those are some dudes.
Right.
It's you're talking about some of the all-time. I mean, guys like in the conversation for the all-time best ever. I mean, that final four, all 150 plus win shares for all those dudes. Right. I mean, that's pretty significant.
Right. I mean, pretty much the last 7 guys on that list, all those guys are in the top 15 or at least top 20 conversation in NBA of greatest players in NBA history. Yeah. So. All right, Hall of Famers drafted or acquired but never played for the franchise. Only one, Sam Jones. He was actually drafted 1 year before he was drafted by the Celtics. He was drafted by the Lakers, but decided not to come out to the NBA. He ended up playing 1 more year. It may have been a military service obligation. I forget why he didn't come, but yeah, he came 1 year later, of course, to the Celtics. But the Lakers could add Sam Jones.
That'd be a very interesting what if. Yeah.
Sam Jones very interesting. Yeah. Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. So. All right. Possible future Hall of Famers. It's a long list. We got LeBron James, 100%. Yeah, not surprising.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, you got in the Hall of Fame. You got Dwight Howard. You got Russell Westbrook, who is 99%, definitely going to the Hall of Fame. Maybe not going to remember his Lakers years so well. But
I don't know if he's going in with a Lakers jersey, but
yeah, oh no, that's going to happen. Yeah, we got Anthony Davis, 98%. Yeah, Carmelo Anthony was talked about 98%. We got Pau Gasol, 93%, and Rajon Rondo, 2 different stints with the Lakers, 60%. So as we talked about before. So, yeah. Best what if scenarios. Again, as we said with the Celtics, don't really feel like we need any what if scenarios to help them. I think they've had enough success. So,
yeah, I was just gonna give like Jerry West one or two of those titles. Give him one. Yeah, just so he's not such a miserable bastard. You know what I mean? I'm sure he still would have been, but
I don't know if that's gonna help that much.
Yeah, you're right. Probably not. So I mean, maybe give him one just to. But yeah, he's probably still gonna be a miserable bastard. So
all right, ultimate Hall of Fame hipster jersey. I'm going with Rodman. Someday,
like the weird number. He's just not good. He's kind of sweaty all the time. He's just he's just dripping.
Why are you sweating so much?
He's just dripping vodka. The Lakers Rodman years were an interesting one. That'd be a really sweet jersey wear. The old 73.
73. That's right. Yes, the old 73. Yeah, that's good. That's a good one. I would say Westbrook someday. It definitely could be Westbrook. I think right now it's going to be Rodman.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going Vlade Divac. I think a Vlade Divac jersey as a hipster jersey would be pretty cool. So
okay. Yeah, again, less irony, but yeah, when in doubt, go with the white guy or go with the European guy.
Right.
All right, ultimate cool kid jersey. Yeah, I don't know if cool kids wear Lakers jersey. I think it's sort of like it's sort of I just don't see. I don't know, like maybe like Baylor, like maybe if you're respecting one of the old guys, or maybe even like a Minneapolis Lakers jersey, maybe I can see that. Sure. Maybe if you're going to go like Mikan or somebody, but outside of that, I don't see the cool kids wearing like.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I would say I would only respect somebody wearing a Kareem Lakers jersey and pretty much no other. Okay. I would find cool. So I think maybe rocking a Kareem Lakers would be cool, but yeah.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so all right, next we have the Kings. The Kings, we have 21 names on here. We got Ralph Sampson, sort of the sad stint, sort of the end of his career. We got Guy Rogers, briefly played for back when they were the Royals. Bob Cousy, of course, came out of retirement, played 7 games for the Royals, did not go well. Jojo White at the end of his career. Rick Adelman had played a few games. Of course, he's in as a coach. Red Holzman played for the Royals in the BA and the NBA. He also not accounted for here, but he actually was a fairly big star in the NBA. Only had 1.8 win shares during his time in the NBA. We got Sarunas Marciulionis, of course, one of the great international players of the 90s. You got Alex Hannum, of course, Warren as a coach. Clyde Levalette, we've talked about, is on a few of these teams. Maurice Stokes, of course, one of the great what-if tragedies or early tragedies of the NBA, but during his playing days, of course, was a brilliant player. You got Wayne Embry, we talked about earlier. We got Vlade Divac, of course, one of the stalwarts for those early 2000s Kings teams, along with Chris Webber. Arnie Rison was part of the great Royals teams of the early 50s that won the 58 championship and always, battled the Lakers for supremacy of the Western Division. Bob Davies, one of the great guards of his era. We got Mitch Richmond, of course, kind of held the Kings together during the 90s, an era in which they were terrible. One of several areas in which the Kings were terrible. Tiny Archibald, the early 70s, of course, one of the great guards of his time. You got Jerry Lucas, of course, one of the great bigs during his time, one of the great eccentrics of NBA history with all his memory tricks. You got Bobby Wanzer, another guy, one of those 50s Kings. Jack Twyman, one of the great scorers of the late 50s and early 60s, and of course I was going to call him the big dog. I don't know why I'm going to call him the big dog, but the true icon of franchise, Mr. Triple Double, Oscar Robertson.
Yep, the Big O.
The
big dog, yes. Too. Let's call him the big dog.
The big dog. All right, the big dog. Yeah.
We'll just capital lowercase d. Right. Lowercase g, capital O, so it works.
Exactly.
The big O and the big dog. So.
I appreciate that, Rich. Yeah, good assist. All right. Yes. So, no Hall of Famers drafted or acquired, but never played that we could find. Interesting. So, all right. Possible future Hall of Famers.
This list is awful. I hate this list so much.
we got Vince Carter, who had a bit of a stint with the
forgot he was with
the Kings. Yeah. Rajon Rondo. Yeah. A couple who are way below the 50% line, but I think are worth noting. First of all, Peja Stojakovic. So he only has 11%, but I could definitely see him getting in, for his international play, for kind of being a pioneer. Played for Serbia. They finished gold in, I think, the World Championships one year. I definitely see him as a possible, getting in for, the international reasons.
I think so too. Yeah. I know he won like a Eurobasket MVP at one point and has a pretty prolific, I think he won the gold in the FIBA World Cup. I'm looking this up just to
clarify. 02, I think.
Yeah. And then he also won a gold in the Eurobasket for in 2001 as well. So he's got 2 gold. I mean, they're not Olympic gold medals, but they're gold medals. Yeah, he's got a lot in his international career that I think, and hell, his NBA career is pretty solid too. It's just not it's so. I'd say I could see him definitely being a guy that in like 5 to 10 years gets in. Where people. Maybe there's a low year, there's a light year, and people go, "Hey, Peja Stojakovic has a pretty prolific career. Maybe we should put him in there."
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if somebody like Raja is, no disrespect to him, and he had a great international career, but I think Stojakovic definitely seems like he feels like he belongs as well. So, yeah, and also interesting name here, but Isaiah Thomas, the Isaiah with the extra A, not the Pistons Isaiah Thomas. Played for 10 teams in his career, but Sacramento, of course, the most, he had 7% Hall of Fame probability, which is, he had a couple of those great years with the Celtics, and certainly put up some numbers for a brief time, but now I don't think there's any chance he's getting in the Hall of Fame, but that was a higher number than I kind of expected. So, all right, what if scenario? Yeah, pretty much.
We all know where this is.
Yeah,
we all know that.
The 2002 Western Conference Finals. If they're able to beat the Lakers there, make the finals, likely win the championship against a pretty weak Nets team. I think that's obviously changes a lot there. Other than that, don't really see a what if scenario that's worth noting.
No, that's it. Yeah, Divac just grabs the rebound, or he just fumbles it, doesn't get a shot off in time. Maybe he just clanks off the side of the backboard or something like that.
Right.
It's just that's it. I mean, it's so much changes with that moment. We probably get Phoenix Suns and or Warriors Revolution a few years before, where it's like, hey, team basketball, shooting, outside shooting, and it probably happens a little bit sooner. Obviously, you didn't have the horses yet in that era of the NBA to really do it, but yeah, we probably teams are definitely constructed a little bit different if Sacramento does win that title, and it's like, oh, okay, like this is one way to play too. Instead of just having a dominant guy or two dominant guys, like you can have a team full of guys that are all good. I mean, and that's not taking anything away from Weber, who was tremendous during that era too. But yeah, it's just it's a super fun team to go back and watch and see how they play. And yeah, I think a lot of NBA history changes if they just win that. If honestly, even if they go to the finals, I think a lot of it changes. But if they win that title, which they probably would have done, a ton changes. So,
all right, ultimate hipster jersey. I'm going to go with Cousy.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going Sarunas. Sarunas.
Oh, yeah.
I think that one's going to work there. But yeah, Bob Cousy works pretty well too.
Yeah, because it's obscure. It's a player people. I mean, Cousy's obviously I wouldn't say well known, but he's a name that strong to casual NBA fans at least have heard of. So I would say that's a good one. And then the Royals years, I think that's a nice one. Yeah, I like Marcellinus too. Ultimate cool kid jersey. I'm gonna go with Tiny Archibald.
Yeah, a little Nate Tiny Archibald would have been.
Yeah, those 70s jerseys are nice too. Those are nice ones. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm going Mitch Richmond. I think it's a cool because it's like you respect the mid 90s Kings. One of the few people that respects the mid 90s Kings, and I don't know. I think it'd be kind of cool to have a Mitch Richmond Kings jersey. So yeah, I'm going with that as the cool.
So are we going with like? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, they had some weird because they had like the weird checkerboard ones. I don't know if I'm counting the checkerboard ones.
Yeah, are we like previous to that? Because those like powder blue ones are nice.
Yes, yeah. I don't know because they got a little weird there in the 90s. I think I would prefer the powdered blue ones.
Yeah, the powder blue ones are nice. I'm trying to
because he spanned the gap. He also played when they had like the ones that everybody knows, like the 2000s ones, just the basic kind of, and I don't think those jerseys are too bad. I kind of like those, but then he also lived through the weird like half of it's purple, half of it's black, and the sides are checkerboard for some reason. I don't know what we were doing during those. That is not a cool kid one. That might be a hipster one if you wear that jersey. If you roll up with the Mitch Richmond checkerboard jersey, which I'm sure at some point we're going to bring back and be like, oh, the iconic. Relive the 1993 Sacramento Kings with these iconic jerseys.
So Richmond, I'm looking at the NBA jersey database. A great resource, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So Richmond did not play with the powder blue ones. He played with that same design, but they were the dark blue ones by the time.
Okay. All right.
Was there. So those were the jerseys from 90 to 94. And then they switched to the purple and black ones that they had from from 94 to like 2002-ish. And then they kind of changed that design in 2002 to a similar design, similar colors, but they didn't have the black, the black ones as much. The checkerboard ones from 94, 97. So he definitely wore the checkerboard ones for a time. So yeah. So I would say the 90 to 94 ones would be the style that I would go with on there. Yeah, I'm a little surprised he doesn't say Divac though. I feel like or Divac or Weber. I feel like those are
those are cool, but they're a little too you've mentioned it before, like like they're a little too obvious on the nose. They're too obvious. Okay. Yeah, right. They're too much like Divac, Kings. Okay. I'm like
I get it. All right, I'm with you.
You know what I mean? Like it'd just be it's a little too corporate, a little too mainstream for me. So
yeah. All right. We now are going to talk about the Detroit Pistons. 25 players in their history. So we've got Alex Hannum. We got Chuck Cooper. We got Nat Clifton. Yeah, it's funny how many of these guys played for lots of teams in the early 50s. Of course, we got Earl Lloyd. So yeah, all three of the four who, the early African American players all played for the Pistons, which is interesting. Bob McAdoo, 64 games in the 1980 season. More on him to come. Tracy McGrady, of course, legendary Celtics, Pistons. Tracy McGrady. We got Allen Iverson, of course, who had that brief Pistons stint in the trade for Chauncey Phillips. You got Chris Webber, who's after he's with Philly. He played for the Pistons. You got Rod Thorne in the mid '60s. Harry Gallatin after his Knicks days played for the Pistons. You got Walt Bellamy played briefly for the Pistons, also coming from the Knicks as well. You got Bob Hallbricks, who's most of his NBA career was played for the Pistons. Actually, did play fairly well for the Pistons for a couple of years, including on their finals teams. Dick McGuire after his Knicks years. Andy Phillip. One of the Handy Andy, one of the better guards of his time, was on the 55-56 finals teams. Adrian Dantley, of course, played for the 88 finals team. Dave DeBusschere, before he went to the Knicks, had some really good years with the Pistons, the youngest player coach in history. George Yardley, one of the great scorers of the 50s. Well, he really pushed the ball in terms of being a forward scorer. Bayley Howell, early on in his career in the early 60s. Dennis Rodman, of course, the Bad Boy Pistons. Dave Bing, of course, the great player of the late 60s, early in mid 70s. Grant Hill, of course, late 90s. We have the horse jerseys, not the best jerseys, but certainly a great player for the Pistons. Ben Wallace, of course, iconic Piston. Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, and Bob Lanier, who we talked about a lot recently when he passed away.
Yeah, it's an interesting list of people. There's a lot of that lower end is a lot of like, oh yeah, like they had 50 game, 30 game runs there, but sure. Not a ton of like high end guys. I mean, Lanier, obviously, and Dumars and Thomas and Ben Wallace and Grant Hill and Dave Bing, like those guys kind of stand out. But yeah, probably less than you would think for a franchise that had been around forever and has been pretty successful a lot of times too. Right?
Yeah, they have it outside of Isaiah, and even Isaiah to a degree, like not quite. They've never had like that. Like nobody on this list is a top 10, probably not even top 20, maybe not even top 30 all-time player.
Right.
I mean, maybe Isaiah might be. You could maybe make a case for Isaiah in top 30, maybe. But outside of that, like they've never like Grant Hill, at his peak. May have been like a top 25 all-time player. Like if you look at the peak of Grant Hill versus the peak of like every guy in NBA history, you could maybe think about that. But outside of that, they don't really have that kind of level of guy in their history, which is interesting. And it's a lot of really good players, but all of their best teams have been, a group effort, a combination of 3 or 4 really good guys that led them to a championship, as opposed to, one guy who was absolutely driving that, Isaiah being, I guess, the closest guy in their history. So, so Hall of Famers drafted or acquired but never played for the franchise. You got Bill Sharman, who actually went to the Pistons in a dispersal draft, but then was traded to the Celtics before he played there. And Dan Issel, who was drafted. I think it was well known that he played for the University of Kentucky, was going to Kentucky in the ABA, but was drafted late by the Pistons in a just-in-case situation. So, possible future Hall of Famers. You got Chauncey Phillips, as mentioned, 84%. Blake Griffin, 55%. What do you think of Blake Griffin's Hall of Fame chances?
Yeah, it's unfortunately, I don't think he's going to add much to it. There was a time where I would have definitely thought, wow, that guy is absolutely a Hall of Famer. But unfortunately, it was that Pistons run that kind of sealed, I think. He'd be a tough one. I maybe later on in his career, maybe we can go, or or later, after he retires, 10 years after, maybe. But I don't know. I just don't love it. An important player for a couple of years, but I don't think he's got enough to be a true Hall of Famer, to me at least.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say he is in a similar boat to Amari Stoudemire. Like, I think of them in similar ways as, like, they were really good for a while. They were important players. They were obviously very athletic and exciting players. I think Blake, I mean, one thing, he was such a great passer and, a fun guy to be in the league. But I mean, he was a 5-time All-NBA player, though. I mean, that's probably more than I would have expected him to have. Obviously, those Clippers teams were, they were really good. They were never quite, they obviously didn't get very far. They never got to the finals or anything, but always, fell to the Spurs or to the Warriors in the playoffs. But he was a 3-time second team, 2-time third team All-NBA, but was never like anywhere near like, an MVP candidate or nothing like that. I mean, maybe even his peak wasn't quite as good as Amari, but I kind of think of him in similar terms there. So, by the way, just looking at some of the other Pistons, Rasheed Wallace is at 8.5%. I don't think he's getting in. Rip Hamilton, 1.7%. Andre Drummond, for some reason, is at 1.9%. I guess
so they love
getting all those rebounds.
Yeah,
I guess
a lot of rebounds.
I guess do that, yeah. But that's interesting, so.
All right, so what if scenarios? I'll do mine first here. I think they still probably lose, but I think the Pistons making the finals in 2003 would have been a really fun scenario. Obviously, that's a year before they win the championship. It's the team that they were good. Like, people kind of think that, Rasheed went there and then they got good. Like, no, they were really, really good before that, and they were right on the cusp of making finals and winning titles and getting on a big run. But I think it would have been really interesting to see them make the finals in 2003. I think it adds to a lot of these guys' legacies in terms of, like, especially like Rip Hamilton and Chauncey Phillips and those guys, really adds to them. And then maybe, they make the finals in any of those next 3 years as well, because it does feel like to a lot of people they're kind of a one and done year, and they're like, oh yeah, they had this one blip of a year where Rasheed came and Rip came and all that sort of stuff. But I do think if they had maybe they made 6 straight Eastern Conference Finals, like, and had a lot of opportunities to make more NBA Finals and maybe win another title or two. So it would have been cool to see them do that, because I think it does help Rasheed and Rip and all those guys, Tayshaun Prince and Billups too, helps all those guys with their legacy a little bit more if they didn't feel like so much of like a one and done team like they did.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and obviously they make all of those conference finals. They were such a good team for a long time. I mean, almost great team for a long time. They make all those conference finals in a row. They definitely had a shot at winning another championship at different times. It just didn't quite happen for them. But yeah, but they're able to win one more, at least get to another finals. I think that kind of changes what they are thought of. So hipster jersey, I am gonna go with Bob McAdoo, and I specifically not just because of McAdoo being there and just because of like kind of all the weirdness around that, but those Detroit, those 78 to 81 uniforms where they've got like those lightning bolts on there, and they're trying to like make it like pizzazz. Like it's almost like they are. It's almost like they're trying to. Like it looks like almost like it's an early 90s design, but like 15 years too early. Like a mid 90s design. Like it's, but there's a charm with those that I think are really like fun and goofy that I don't like feel like they're not quite as gaudy as the 90s ones. So
yeah, I'm with you. Those are great.
Yeah.
I'm going with Dennis Rodman. I like just the classic Pistons, Dennis Rodman jersey. I think it's a solid one, a good one.
Yeah.
But also kind of hipstery too, because it's Dennis Rodman, and there's a certain thing and an appeal. So it'd be right in between the cool kid and the hipster, but I think leaning more towards the hipster for the Rodman. But you disagree.
Well, yeah, I think of Rodman as more of a cool kid jersey because I don't think there's anything quite ironic about Rodman on the Pistons. Like Rodman overall, yes, lots of irony there. And I see your point. I'm not crapping on your pick. I think I can see where you're going with there, but I think Rodman is more of a cool kid because it's more of a celebration because of how great he was for the Pistons. I could see Big Ben for the same reasons. I mean, the early 2000s Pistons uniforms are pretty cool too. I don't think they're quite as cool as the 80s ones. I like the cut better. I think that I like the style of the 2000s a bit less, but those I think are neat ones as well. And obviously Wallace is that kind of same lunch pail type player, which we normally reserve for white guys, but I think Wallace definitely fits that one as well. So and Rodman to a degree as well. So yeah.
My pick for the cool kid jersey is Grant Hill, but the non-teal horse one I want when he came into the league, which is the basic blue 80s Pistons jersey. I think that's a really, really cool jersey. And Grant Hill, like, he wasn't cool at all when he was coming up. Like, he was one of the least cool guys. Like, but I feel like he's gotten kind of cool in later days. And yeah, I think it's kind of fun to throw it back to the Grant Hill days. So I'd be into that for sure.
Absolutely. So, all right, now we have the Warriors. We've got 22 guys. We've got Ralph Sampson, another sad entry toward the end of his career after he was with the Rockets. You got Jojo White toward the end of his career. Kings of the Warriors both got Sampson and Jojo White at the end of their career. Yeah. We got Larry Costello at the very beginning of his career. He was one guy that we talked about. It was interesting, like the 55, 56 Warriors had, quite a few guys like Costello and Gene Chu who ended up, being great players elsewhere who would had just very small roles on those teams. You got Chris Webber, of course, who both his rookie season and his last season was spent with the Warriors. You got Sarunas Marciulionis, of course, later with the Kings, but accomplished most of his NBA accomplishments with the Warriors. You got Andy Phillip, kind of bounced around the league here and there, but was definitely a strong guard during his era. You got early 80s Bernard King kind of revived his career before going to the Knicks with the Warriors after a really tough stint with the Jazz and drug issues he had. You got Mitch Richmond before he went to the Kings. The Kings and the Warriors have so much crossover. I didn't even realize this until now. Jerry Lucas, not Jerry Lewis, not the comedian Jerry Lewis, but the basketball player Jerry Lucas, of course, also the Kings and the Royals and the Warriors. Before he went to the Knicks, he had a couple years with the Warriors. You got Robert Parrish, never played for the Kings, but did play for the Warriors before he went to the Celtics. You got Jamal Wilkes, of course, part of the 75 title team as a rookie. You got Guy Rogers, a great assist man during his time in the 60s. You got Joe Folks. He was a great scorer in the early NBA. Jumpin' Joe. You got Al Attles, one of the great guards of his era, of course, later in as a coach and just, as a kind of like the Tommy Heinsohn of the Warriors, like 60-year association with the Warriors. You got Tim Hardaway of Run TMC fame. Tom Gola of the 56 championship team and was a really solid player, kind of the Draymond Green of his day to a degree. You got Nate Thurmond, of course, great rebounder and big man of his era. You got Chris Mullin, Rick Barry, Neil Johnston. If we talked about Neil Johnston a lot of times, one of the great unheralded big men of his day. Paul Arizin, one of the best forwards of his time, also part of that 56 title team. And last but not least, Will Chamberlain. Early on in his career, played for the Warriors, only 5 years, but managed to garner 112 win shares in those 5 seasons. So, good stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned at the top, it's kind of funny how closely aligned the Kings and the Warriors franchises were for a while, and one has gone one direction and one is kind of still in that same direction, because a lot of those guys, the first 5 guys you mentioned all had, or the 4 of the first 5 guys you mentioned all had some weird Kings runs, but thankfully it veered a different way for the Warriors. But yeah, it's an interesting franchise history there with Wilt and Arizin being clear guys, but I think over time, I think a few guys are going to compete with them for that. That list is going to be very different when we do this show 20 years from now.
Absolutely, yes. All right, so Hall of Famers drafted or acquired but never played. You got Vince Carter. He was traded, of course. He was drafted there and then traded to the Raptors, Antoine Jameson, and some draft picks involved in that trade. So, possible future Hall of Famers. Well, we got Steph Curry. We got Kevin Durant, who's at 100%. I believe Steph's at 100% as well. Draymond Green, 77%. An interesting number there. I think he's definitely getting in, although I would have not necessarily thought that the Hall of Fame probability would see that. I guess probably championships are played into that. Certainly, defensive teams play into that. Klay Thompson at 70%. And Andre Iguodala is at 13%, which I don't know. I mean, Iguodala I could see as being one of those guys, given that he had, his early career as a pretty good star for the Sixers, and then of course went in and did his kind of do everything thing with the Warriors. I could kind of see him being there, but I think the first 4 guys are all I'm pretty sure are definitely going in.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, Curry and Durant obviously going in, no question.
Oh yeah. No, all four of those guys absolutely are going in. I think.
Yeah, Green and Klay, I think they're definitely going in, but they're not absolutely 100%. Durant and Curry obviously are 100%. So Iguodala, I don't know. What do you think about Iguodala?
Yeah, he's an interesting case. I think that there might be a groundswell of people that say, hey, he won Finals MVP and he was, the glue that made everything go. I think he gets he's one of those dudes that I could absolutely see 15 years after he retires, people kind of like kicking the can on Andre Iguodala. I don't know if I'd ever bet him going in, but I think I could see it. I think I could see people making an argument for him for sure.
I agree. All right. So best what if scenario for me, I would say the late 70s Warriors, they figured out like they are able to, keep Jamal Wilkes, Robert Parrish, Gus Williams, Phil Smith. They're able to kind of figure out a replacement for Rick Barry as he's winding down the end of his career. They definitely had potential dynasty with the guys they had in there. They just, one, they didn't realize what they had, and two, they had a lot of chemistry issues and not good management and all of that. But I think, you look at that 77 team, I mean, yeah, they had Rick Barry, who was 32. They had Phil Smith, who was like all NBA guard, later had injuries, unfortunately, but was really stalwart. You had, like I said, you had Jamal Wilkes, you had Gus Williams, you had Robert Parrish as a rookie. You still have a good big man in Clifford Ray. I mean, they had a lot of talent there. If they could have kind of figured out, put that together, maybe, found a young, solid, starish type player to replace Barry, that's a team that could have definitely had a lot of longevity.
Yeah, my what if is, and we've talked about this on a recent episode. What if they signed Dwight Howard? Because they really wanted to sign Dwight Howard before he went to the Rockets. So just imagine how much changes in NBA history where the Warriors are like, yeah, we did it. We secured Dwight Howard, you know what I mean? And like Dwight was great at that time, great, very well regarded. People wanted him. He was a very, it was that post Lakers year, and that was a little weird, but people still really wanted him. And the Warriors were one of those teams that was trying to clear cap room and clear space to get Dwight Howard, and they did not. Or in the same breath, they really wanted to trade Klay Thompson for Kevin Love too, and that would also have been a really fascinating thing to see, because that's still a really good team. I mean, you put Kevin Love on, the Warriors, it's still a pretty good team, but they're not the Warriors. I don't know. It's just a very fascinating thing to think that this team was like, we got to get big. We got to get a bigger guy. And then they failed at doing it. And we're like, let's just try it with all these not that big guys. And guess what happened? They won a lot, and they completely changed the NBA as we know it by having, Draymond Green be their center and not Dwight Howard or Kevin Love or any number of other big men that they tried to. Hell, they took them a while to get to. They were doing the Andrew Bogut and David Lee thing for a while too, and then they were like, wait, let's just play this guy at center. Let's see what happens. So it's a fascinating part of NBA history if just Klay Thompson just gets thrown in for a deal for Kevin Love or whatever. That just, it's be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, your ultimate Hall of Fame hipster jersey. I'm gonna go with Jumpin' Joe Fultz.
I like it.
Yeah. Now, obviously, he was a great player, but he's so old. I feel like the obscurity factor there, is like, you can get a lot of fun questions with Joe Fultz. You get some puzzled looks, but I think it's a fun one.
Yeah, I feel like that'd be kind of a cool one, though. I don't know if they're. I'll be honest. I struggled with the hipster Warriors jersey because I think most of them are pretty cool. I think Fultz is kind of a cool kid one. I went with Chris Mullin as the hipster jersey, but I also think that could apply as a cool jersey too. They have a lot of cool players in their history. I don't know if there's really an obvious hipster one here.
Yeah, well, when in doubt, go with the white guys. As
we've done, yeah.
Yeah. All right, ultimate cool kid jersey. Yeah, I'm going to go with Tim Hardaway. I feel like Tim Hardaway, like that, Run TMC was just like as a young player, was just such an exciting, speedy, fun guard. I think he typifies that Run TMC era. It's more about the era for those three. Hardaway, I think, is the best one that kind of personifies that. But I think that one is kind of what I'm going with.
Yeah, I'm going with Wilt. I think a Wilt Chamberlain one would be kind of cool because it's like, Wilt. I don't know. There's just a cool fact. I don't like, people just don't wear like Wilt jerseys ever. So I think it'd be kind of cool if you did do that. So.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to remember I'm looking at the NBA jersey database now at the actual jerseys that they wore during the Wilt era. So they were kind of they look kind of similar to what the Sixers jerseys would later look like. I mean, they have Phila on there. They've got their blue and white. They have some gold trim on there. So, they're not bad. Then later in the 60s, they have a year where they actually had gold uniforms, and then the San Francisco script on there, and then they went back to blue. So, those are some pretty fun ones. Those have an interesting look and are pretty cool, especially the early, at the very beginning of the career, they have that line in the middle. That's kind of cool. That's kind of interesting. That you've seen those on the Sixers jersey. So yeah, the Warriors jerseys. I could definitely see that. Yep. So that's fun. All right, so last team for part one, and boy, this show went a bit longer than I expected, but some great discussion. So it's been fun. Bullets Wizards franchise. Of course, I did not should, of course, mention the Chicago Zephyrs and Packers as well. Lots of fun names for this franchise. All right, we've got Ralph Sampson, the last sad stop of his career. I completely forgot he was in the Bullets. You got Slick Leonard. You got Jerry Sloan, of course, more in as a coach. You got Don Nelson also in as a coach before he went to the Lakers and then later the Celtics. He was also part of the Chicago franchise before they went to Baltimore. Sloan was, of course, on the Baltimore Bullets. Rod Thorne, Spencer Haywood, last stop of his career was the Bullets. Paul Pierce, of course, played for the Wizards 2015 year. Actually, that was kind of a fun year for that team.
Yeah.
Ben Wallace early on in his career before he went to the Pistons. Dave Bing had a couple years with the Bullets. Michael Jordan, of course, playing for the Wizards. Mitch Richmond traded from the Kings to the Wizards. Bernard King, after his stint with the Knicks, had played several years actually with the Bullets and was fairly good. They had a couple solid years there. Bob Dandridge, of course, leaving the Bucks to go to the Bullets. They ended up winning the championship in '78. Moses Malone had a stint with the Bullets after Philly before the Hawks, where he stood out. Bailey Howell played with the franchise for a while after the Pistons before the Celtics. Chris Webber, of course, in the mid-'90s after it doesn't work out with the Warriors. Earl Monroe with the Bullets early on in his career before he goes to the Knicks. Gus Johnson, kind of one of the unheralded players of his time, had a long stint with the Bullets. Walt Bellamy, of course, was the first star for Chicago, very productive for that franchise, even as they moved to the Bullets before he went to some other franchises. Elvin Hayes, of course, helps lead that team to the '78 championship. And, of course, the iconic bullet of it all, Wes Unseld, of course, played in the '70s, won the MVP, and, the great passer, defender, screener, do-it-everything player for the Bullets franchise.
Yep, that's great, yeah. A lot of cool players. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. The cool factor for a lot of these players is I mean, those final. God, man. I mean, I guess if you call Michael Jordan cool, I don't know. I'm kind of the fence about if he's cool or not. Great player, obviously. I don't know if he's cool, but I guess he's kind of cool. I don't know if Jordan Wizards Jordan was cool, but yeah. I mean, God, actually, I think all these guys are cool.
Right. I think Michael Jordan got so popular at a certain point that he wasn't cool. Like maybe you could consider like early Jordan cool, but
like 1989 Jordan is cool, but 1998 Jordan's not that cool. But like everybody else is pretty damn. I mean, especially that. I mean, you got Mitch Richmond, Bernard King, Bob Dandridge, Moses Malone, Bailey Howell, whatever, Chris Webber, on the fence. But Earl Monroe, Gus Johnson, Walt Bellamy, Elvin Hayes, Wes Unseld. I mean, man, that's a lot of cool for wasted. On Washington. You know what I mean? Oh, wow. I'm kidding.
Oh, wow. Lots of great uniforms, too.
And Baltimore, too. I'm throwing Baltimore on the fence.
Baltimore, Oh, you're going to throw Baltimore fence? Yeah. But of course, the Chicago Zephyrs.
Yes.
Iconic. Yeah.
For sure.
The Zephyrs, iconic, yes. All right, so no Hall of Famers drafted or acquired but never played, at least none that I could find. Possible future Hall of Famers, well, you got Russell Westbrook and Dwight Howard. 99%. Yeah, they played for a lot of teams. It's funny how Westbrook played so many years for the Thunder. Like, oh, he's a Thunder for life, and now he's played everywhere. All right, so other guys, John Wall's at 32%. Gilbert Arenas is at 22%. I don't see either one of those happening, and particularly Arenas. Wall, I mean, maybe if like Wall has like a really great like second career with the with the Clippers or whoever, and it's like a contributor to a playoff and finals team, maybe, but that one's a bit of a long shot. Bradley Beal's only at 2.2%. I would have expected to be like a little bit higher, but he's got a lot. It could happen, but he has a lot to do before he could ever get there. So I would say. All right, best what if scenario. Yeah, I think you and I have the same one, but like, what if they decided like, let's try this Chris Webber, Rasheed Wallace thing in the mid-90s, give that some time. I think that's definitely possibly a great team around 99 or 2000 if they give it some time, get the right complementary pieces. I mean, you could see that kind of like being like a Kings East, especially if they just had Rick Adelman in there as their coach. That might have that would have worked. Or the other one is maybe like, hey, maybe that 75 team just has better luck. I mean, they got swept by the Warriors, but like all of those games were extremely close. If they just had some better luck and and they maybe could have outlasted in that series if they just won game 1 or won game 2 or just got a little momentum there. But yeah, they just kind of got rolled over in like the weirdest way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, to me it's definitely like the 90s. They were just weird. They kept cycling in and out of like good players. It's just like, keep all the good players. Right. Like, what are you doing? Just keep them all. Like, just have them all play together. What are you doing? Why do you keep trading all these good players? Just like they would try it for a year and they're like, oh, we're not instantly good, whatever. And then they actually got kind of okay. Like they became a pretty good team and we're ended up making some playoff runs. But it was just like, just keep the good players together. Stop trading them all. But I do wonder what would have happened, because then they had the Dwight Howard and Chris Webber thing for a little while, and then that was like okay, and they're like, that's not going to work anymore. It's like, no, please, let's try it. Like,
all right, let's try
let these guys grow together, see what happens. But it's a very, very weird franchise in the 90s where they're just like a lot of good guys come through and they're just in and out of there very, very quickly as well. So yeah, I think that would have been the way I would do it is try keep those talented guys together for a little bit longer than they did.
All right, Ultimate Hall of Fame hipsters. Yeah, I'm going with Rasheed Wallace. Although the Bullets uniforms of that, I mean, they're pretty cool, but they're not nearly as cool as like the 70s, 80s.
No, yeah, they're definitely not.
But I will. I think I'm going to go with Rasheed Wallace because it's Rasheed.
That's a good pick. Yeah, I'm going Moses Malone. I think that's it basic enough where I can't call it for sure cool kid, but yeah, I think it lands in the hipster realm.
Yeah, and Moses did have 1 year with the cool Bullets, flag style jerseys before they went to the solid color jerseys. So,
right. Oh yeah.
So you definitely got that. So yeah, ultimate cool kid jersey. I'm going Wes Unseld. I don't think.
Oh, it's not even up for a debate. It is the ultimate cool kid jersey.
The only one that I could maybe would think about is like early 70s Earl Monroe of like Bullets. Like orange bullet style. Like those are really cool too. That's the only one that I would even entertain. But
even give a thought to. Yeah, or even an Elvin Hayes, that era of Elvin Hayes, maybe. But it's Unseld, man. Unseld's like the perfect player for that jersey. It's just it's perfect.
Yep. All right, so I do want to mention a couple here that are not directly related to the franchise, but they don't fit anywhere else. So we're just going to talk about them here. All right, so Buddy Jeanette, who we discussed recently, of course, he played for the original Baltimore Bullets, who folded in 1954, not connected to this Bullets Wizards franchises. He's the only Hall of Famer who played in the BAA/NBA or in the ABA, for that matter, who only played for a team that no longer exists. So we're going to mention him here because there's no other really good place to mention him. So
that's rough.
Yeah. So. I guess he's the ultimate hipster and cool kid jersey for the original.
Get your Buddy Jeanette Baltimore Bullets jersey.
Yeah. Well, the 54 jerseys had sleeves, so you could get some sleeve jerseys there. So they actually look kind of cool. They're outside of that, I don't know if they're the best jerseys in the world, but hey, that would be fun. So also different franchise, also no longer exists, but the same region. The Washington Capitals of the ABA actually signed Dave Bing in 1969. However, he never ended up leaving the NBA for the ABA. And the Virginia Squires, who are the same franchise as the Washington Capitals, of course, later moved on to Virginia. They tried to sign Bob McAdoo secretly while he was still in the NCAA, but the agreement was nullified because that was too shady even for the ABA.
Yeah, so, it was like, come on, just get him early. But yeah, he's still actively like, don't. That's
right.
When you're too shady for the ABA in acquiring like talents, that's you're really gotta
And that was also that was originally the Oakland Oaks franchise. Then they moved to Washington, and became the Capitals. Not related to the BAA Washington Capitals, and then they became the Virginia Squires, and then they folded they lasted the 76 season, but then they folded before the merger happened, so they weren't included in the merger. They would not have been included in the merger anyway. So, but they didn't. They missed out on that money. I'll give you money to fold the team money. If they only lasted a few more months, they could have done that. So, yeah.
Happened to a few people too that stuck it out during the lean times, then didn't get the payout.
Well, they were there right at the end, though, right just before the end. Yeah, just didn't quite get to the finish line. Got 99% of the way there, but alas. So, all right. Well, this has been a fun one.
Yeah, sorry we went a little long, but hopefully everybody enjoyed this. It's fun to kind of go through. There's a lot of franchise, a lot of fun players, a lot of remember some guys. So
yeah, Yeah, we'll be doing the rest of these teams. I imagine it'll at least be another couple episodes to get through. Obviously, with the oldest teams, you're going to have the most Hall of Famers. With more recent teams, you're not going to have as many, so they won't be quite as long. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like our Sonics Thunder section should be a lot smaller than this.
Our Hornets section is not going to be
our Hornets section is quite quick. Right. Yeah, Hornets that one is quick. That's all I'll say about that one. Yeah, we'll have a lot of discussions there. So.
All right. Well, definitely, of course, check out our sponsor, StatHead. Use our exclusive promo code BACK to get $20 off an annual subscription to any of StatHead.com's products. Thank you again to StatHead.com for sponsoring this week's show. Thanks, everyone, of course, for checking us out. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook at Over and Back NBA. Please give us a rating and review on the podcast platform that you listen to us on. It helps other people find us and it makes us feel good about ourselves, which is the most important thing. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We're back again soon.
You're finally at that hot new spot, the one your friends keep raving about, sitting across from your date. It's going...
Another round?
Really well. And that dish you've been dying to try, oh, it's headed your way. You can smell it, hear it sizzling fresh off that skillet as it comes closer, and served. Go ahead, enjoy. After your phone sneaks a bite first. When you're with Amex, it's not if it's going to happen, but when. American Express. Don't live life without it.
Football fans, grab your favorite food and a cooler full of drinks. It's time to tailgate. Whether you're serving up hot dogs and hamburgers or breaking out the barbecue, feel free to kick things up a notch with Frank's Red Hot. And when you're looking to cool it down, reach for a nice cold Bud Light. The team's going all the way this year. Make sure you're there to cheer them on. And don't forget to fire it up with Frank's Red Hot and cool it down with Bud Light. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch Bud Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.